son, where'd you find this?
Buckle up, buttercups. It's time to get down to business. Oh, yeah. It's the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. Totally legit.
All right, folks, we're back here once again. It's the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. Today, I am very super excited to have longtime friend, fellow Nebraskan, XR producer, TEDx speaker, AI marketing specialist, AI and marketing specialist, and pro esports athlete, and curator of Reality Check VR, and host of the Christcast, excuse me, Mr. Caleb Eubanks.
Hey, all right. Wow. Thanks for the fantastic introduction and the applause. Whoa. That's next level.
I really want to make sure we highlight all the things that you do, because you do a lot of things. And I'm not gonna lie to you. This is partly due to my ignorance. I had no clue in high school that you were interested in video production to the level that you are. And very few of the people that have left Nebraska to pursue these interests have been able to do as much with it as you have.
Well, I appreciate the insight there, as well as just the appreciation, because again it's certainly something I'm trying to do, but I'm also humble enough to say that there's a lot that I need to learn, and a lot of things I don't know, right? A lot of things that I'm still in the process of learning and trying to get better at. But I've been very, very lucky and fortunate. And when I say luck, right, I've been preparing, and opportunities kind of come at me to that point to where I've been able to say yes to some things and actually learn a lot from people who know more than myself. But as you said, when I was in Lincoln, I didn't really get to show as much, in part because access, right? Money, right. And 2000, right? In those time period, just to put something online was impossible. 2005, yeah. YouTube came around, right? And the cameras weren't something that was super accessible. But early on, we used to have those VHSs that we used to hold, the VHS recorders. And I used to run around with my friends outside, and we'd, record ourselves with Heelys, making videos and doing silly stuff like that.
Dude.
But where would we put it, right? We didn't know like what to do or how to edit it. So, again, not to keep talking too much, but I'll say the first time I got into editing early on, though, was making like simple like Halo videos, right? Healy videos, Halo videos with video games, and that's when I first learned the editors. So they're the editors programs. So once you've kind of played with Avid a little bit and maybe Power Director, at those points your kind of brain knows how to put things together. And then you have to wait for the opportunities, right? What do I put together, right? And then so after high school, there was a lot more opportunities for things, and I can kind of go on to more of the catalyst to that. But yeah, as you said, we knew each other early on. So back in the day, I didn't realize that you were going to be a podcaster or somebody who's going to be involved in things like this yourself. So it's really, really cool to be here with you right now and just to discuss stuff like this.
Well, I think we were fortunate in the sense that Lincoln offered some opportunity and exposure more so than a lot of other Midwestern towns, definitely in Nebraska. Mm-hmm. There's definitely things that I experienced in Lincoln that propelled me to go out to find more of. But I'm kind of interested, like, what in high school times, what was it that propelled you to be like, I hear the things I'm interested in, here's what I want to do, I'm going to have to leave here to go do these things?
Good question. I would say there's a lot of feelings of love for Lincoln, Nebraska, because there's so much about that city that I feel prepared me for the world in ways that other people might not have as easily, right? As you said, there's things that are kind of given to us when you're, cornbread and just given that I don't know, friendly nature of as it is in Nebraska. But the thing is, people also kind of, they put you in a box somewhat, right? They see who you are growing up, and they kind of expect you to act like that person. And I kind of grew up shy, and I kind of grew up wanting to be friendly. I remember as a kid always wanting to get along with everybody. And as you kind of get older in life, you realize not everybody's trying to get along, right? Maybe there's some tension, and school to me was very scary. It's full of anxiety, and I was very scared. I kind of merge things, and sometimes I have a little problems with learning, and even dyslexia or stuttering as growing up was a thing I had an issue with. And even now, I try really hard not to stutter too much, but you'll notice that if you watch my videos or if you see me in a podcast doing live things, it'll pop out. Well, I like editing, because if I'm editing, I can get rid of all those problems. I can show myself and frame myself in a way that I want to be represented in, right? Whereas if I'm live, even now, I get a little bit of anxiety, and I have to remind myself, like, take a deep breath, put more oxygen in, right? You're actually in a situation that's exciting and good things are going to happen, as opposed to the black box of something scary is going to pop out of me, you know?
Yeah.
And so again, why did I have to leave Lincoln? Well, partly I had to be able to see myself the way I wanted to see myself and not the way other people saw me. And again, not that I had such a terrible time there, but I definitely was seen as somebody who I didn't necessarily want to be, right?
Sure.
And as far as being creative, when I would see other people do videos or do funny things growing up, I thought, well, great. I love joy. I love comedy, and I love music. And that's partly why I liked being in the friend group, because you were always in bands. And I thought, man, music is something I love. I'm not great at it, but I love music. And I love being able to play with all the instruments, not just one, right? So, and the problem with liking so many things, as you kind of mentioned at the beginning, you do all these stuff. You also can become disillusioned in the idea that you're good at something maybe that you're not, or you become so unfocused that you never actually develop a true skill at anything, right?
Yeah.
And so I've tried to somewhat flip that on its head and somewhat try to become an expert as much as I can without, I would say, getting lost in too many places, but in a way that actually brings everything or coalesces skills in something that actually helps people and myself move forward, right? And that's where we are kind of right now in the stage where when I'm playing with music and playing with video and playing with all these things, I'm now kind of working in projects that use all those skills and actually bring the AI and bring the marketing and again, bring all these project building skills into one spot, which is just super enjoyable and refreshing, and something that I want to share with other people, because it doesn't really feel good to be in a good place if you're not able to help other people get there as well, right? So that's kind of the second part of the journey. That's part of the podcast outreach, and part of the thing I want to express when I'm talking to people such as yourself and putting a message out there to others, right? Is that, yeah, we're doing cool stuff, but we're also trying to give recipes out there to bring other people here with us, right? So, so getting away from people that kind of expect one thing of you is definitely helpful. But if you have a great, outlook and people expect you to do great things, being around those people makes you feel comfortable. So you don't want to leave those people. But again, the opposite can be said for people like myself who kind of feel withdrawn or feel kind of hidden inside. The moment I got out, I became the Caleb I felt more like I was always, really, right?
Well, and it's too, like, definitely just as a place, Lincoln, it is a comfortable place. Mm-hmm. It's everything you need is within a short drive. Like, the people there are great. It's cheap. The city is fun. Even as a kid, there was stuff for us to do. We never wanted for things to do. It's comfortable, but there's also a bit of, and I'm sure you're this way a little bit too, but like I kind of crave discomfort. I find the most meaningful growth that I experience is when I'm in an uncomfortable situation and like growing through that or growing past it.
Right. Did you learn that, or did you always feel that way when you were younger? Like, for example, when you felt uncomfort as a kid, were you like, all right, bring it on, or was it uneasy?
No.
I'm interested because it took for me to get there. Right.
Well, and
now, as you said, I love it now. Yeah, bring it on now.
You kind of mentioned like having anxiety. Like that was something it took me a long time to like overcome, and I always enjoyed it, but I didn't understand what it was, and I didn't understand that I enjoyed it until I left, until I forced myself out of the comfortable childhood situations and like tried to carve my own path. So. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can definitely relate with what you're saying there. It's definitely part of the reason why I left. But it's not something I necessarily, and I don't know if we ever get good at it, but just not being afraid of it or not letting it like have this control over you and inhibit you from doing something. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think that's valuable.
Absolutely. And as you said, you have to almost be, I would say, taught that. You have to have somebody tell you, hey man, like this is kind of the way things are, and this is the way it's going to feel. At least for me, I needed that. I needed somebody to kind of walk me through those understandings. And if I didn't have that, well, then you have to go through it the hard way. You have to feel those feelings and kind of, in hindsight, I could have felt maybe differently at the time. But again, I would say that the struggle, as you said, is something that helps us actually understand and be able to help other people. And I kind of like to use the analogy of the whole caterpillar coming into a butterfly stage, right? Because it's this uncomfortable stage, you would say, and there's a lot of effort that has to be involved for it to change its shape. And when I hear this, it's always great, and a nice little reminder that without that, you don't become the better thing. And if you just try to skip that stage, well, you don't become the thing, right? So that stage is part of it. So rather than actually being scared of that stage, which I was, I'm trying to encourage and get people excited about that stage, because not only is it something everybody's going to go through, but we're always going through it if we're continuing to grow as a person, right? If we're going to continue to try to evolve, transcend, and move on to higher stages, we have to say, okay, well, how do I get past this? Well, how do I get past this? Well, how do I get past this? And the moment you find some success, as you start to do, all these other problems start to come into play, right? And again, I want to be a nice person. I want to help other people. Well, how do I continue to do that when I'm doing well or when I'm not doing well? Either way, again. And so I'm trying to be genuine. I'm trying to be honest. And I find the more honest, open, and the more I communicate with others, the easier it becomes, because the less hidden I am. The less anxiety I feel inside, because the more comfortable I am at knowing the outcomes of things that are going to happen, because the more conversations I've had with people about those things, right? And so every book that I read, every conversation I have with a person is just another perspective that I get to learn from, get to grow from, and not have to get stuck in my own simple spot, right? So I know I talk a lot, and so I got to jump out of it sometimes. But I want to say, when I remember things in Lincoln, there was a lot of, as you said, opportunities. There was a lot of moments where we were shown things, whether it be through art, whether it be through moments at school, or just the freedom to get to kind of run around with friends and learn from just different people, because we had people from all cultures and all around the world in the schools that I went to in Lincoln. Yeah, surprisingly. In the middle of Lincoln, everybody from everywhere was there, right? We had this international safe haven spot, for the most part, that people could come to. And yeah, it showed, right? And I think that also helped me grow. And I mean this with people like yourself and other friends that I got to have. There's so many people that I can point to, that I can say, hey, they had something that I wanted, and that I wanted to learn from, that I wanted to imitate and somewhat adapt my personality to be more like that, right? And specifically, I remember in high school, I remember you always had this kind of demeanor of being very friendly with people, number one, and number two, kind of almost just being always very confident, like you kind of always knew what was going to happen. So that's why I kind of asked you, did you always feel this way? Because you didn't have much anxiety on the outside, right? Growing up, and if anything, you kind of seemed like you always had everything under control, So
well, it's funny that you say that. I would say the same thing about you. Like, I would not have pegged you as somebody with high levels of anxiety about like personal identity, and it was crippling. I'm not going to lie to you, it was crippling, but I personally would just stifle it down. It would be like, nope, we're not. If I want to have this meltdown, I'm going to have this meltdown alone in my room. I don't want to. I tried, and it still leaked out, but I really tried not to put my anxieties on people as much as possible. It was very hard though, and it kind of hardened. It kind of hardens you in a special way. Kind of like what you're describing. It's like, you pack it down and you try and present this idea of who you want to be, but then in that process, you'll learn about, I don't want to be that kind of person. Maybe there are some things that I have to be open about. Maybe it's not good to stifle those things all the way. Maybe it's important that I learn to contain them, so that they don't disrupt me or people around me's lives. But I can't live with it inside of me. It has to come out in a positive way. And for different people, that's different things. But
right, and as you said, it has to come out. That's definitely true, because if it doesn't, repression, depression, those things go together. The words are similar for a reason, and that is because when you repress, it turns into depression, and that over time is something I definitely felt. And when I would get stuck in these little low spots, I would question things. Why, right? Why am I feeling this way? Or maybe being stuck in the victim mentality of why me? Why are others doing this to me, right? And then when you realize that you have no control in that victim mentality, you start to either get very, very comfortable there, or you start to want control back. And I think that all people kind of go through this. And again, this is part of that becoming a child to a man. And sure. We all have to go through this in some way, shape, or form. And we all do it differently at different ages, at different times, and maybe more times than others, right? But I think that in this process, I think I really developed this understanding of, I do love being alive, right? If there's ever a time when I'm going to feel super depressed, that there's certain tools and systems that I can put into play that are going to help prevent that. And the reason I mention that is because, there's a history of my family of people, we'll say the unaliving, since this is going online, right? Unaliving themselves, and not looking for sympathy or anything other than the understanding that when that happens, it's like a poison, right? That kind of sits in other people's minds more, right? And I didn't realize it as a young person, how much of a poison it was for my whole family. Because like when things go wrong, this thing can kind of jump off as a possibility. And that should never be a possibility, right? Yeah. Anyways, so part of the anxiety came from growing up with be honest about this possibility existing in life. And that's something that eventually when you turn that off, a lot of anxiety goes away.
Yeah, right? Sure, it's a weight off.
A lot of anxiety goes away when that possibility goes away. And how does that possibility go away? Well, the understanding that life is, number one, precious. I'm very grateful for the things that I have, and that time, these little things, is one of the ingredients that will always allow for a good outcome. Right? And so I don't think that, I know that. How do I know that? Well, because I talk to really smart people, smarter people than myself. I look at history, I read books, and through that process, I'm going, okay, there's not one person in history who I care about who's done something that I'd like, who's going to tell me something other than that.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay, all right. And that's why I want to, again, put that voice out there that, hey, that not only is there good things to look forward to, actually, you have to go through bad things to have those good things. And now there's this like circular graph I see in my mind now. And to be honest, partly was when we talk about whether it's recreational drugs or whether it's whether it's shrooms or something like this, that your brain can kind of expand and see things differently. Well, for me, when I was younger, I had this understanding of, rather than seeing life like a plane, I saw life more like a sphere. And I saw, okay, well, when I experience something really bad, right, it actually allows for that really good thing to happen, that really good experience maybe to have, or vice versa, up or down. And if you have never experienced anything really negative, well, you can't really have an amazing experience, because it's just philosophical 101 science as far as,
there's no point of comparison. Yeah. You
can't. It's just, let's all go through the human experience of, we know what it's like. And the thing is, not only that, I realize there's almost some tension and almost magnetic pull between the two of those things. And I'm getting really lost here in the convo, but in the sense that, like, when you're feeling like really happy, right? Like I just went off a roller coaster and I'm feeling extremely high, or I just had a great conversation with somebody. Now it's over. Well, now there's the pull of kind of almost going down into that negative section. So a lot of people experience high highs and then low lows. And I wasn't aware of how that just kind of naturally happens. And again, as an emotional person, I would get stuck in lows. and so, whoa, wait, after I have a high, I'm going, oh, get ready for the dip. And so this time, maybe just jump down there and come right back up. You don't need to stay down there this time, and let's be aware of it. Let's be in control. No victim mentality. Let's be in control of it. How do I be in control of it? Well, again, what do I have control over? Right? My mindset. Not necessarily even money, because money can come and go, but my mindset's something that you can't take from me. So anyways, that's what I'm gonna keep trying to push. I've got to this place now to where I'm somewhat trying to teach others and help others, but I'm also trying to learn every single day, because I'm under no illusion that I have it solved, right? And at all. So, again, I kind of got lost in the conversation there. But when it comes to just talking about anxiety, I used to tell people I have social anxiety. I'd walk up to random people and let them know, like, hey, I get kind of anxious in these situations, like preparing people for my anxiety, right? And then by doing so unwittingly, now I have to be the person I told them I'm going to be. Right. And if I'm all charismatic and out there doing the thing like I kind of want to be, I can't, because I told them I'm the anxiety guy, right? And so I learned, be who you want to be, talk how you want to talk, say what you want, and don't do the things other than that. I will? No, I am. I hope? No, I do, right? Like these words and how you phrase them and what you say matters. So I'm trying to learn that. And again, people like yourself who are kind of pushing these conversations with people and learning these things, well, I have no better way to learn than to talk to you and ask you questions and have a conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've also, I've never necessarily been afraid of the lows, and I have always kind of going back to the challenges thing. I like the lows because they make me appreciate the highs. Mm-hmm. My problem was that I'd get stuck in the low, like you were talking about. But the real art there is like, let me experience this thing, but understand what I'm experiencing and understand that it's temporary, and understand that I can then yet again ride this wave out until we get to another high. And definitely talking to people from different backgrounds, talking to other people who have a wealth more experience than I do. I mean, it always seems to put something into perspective for me that is beneficial. So, the conversational aspect of society is really dying now. It's not necessarily thriving in a way that it was. But
as you said, I try not to be too nihilistic in the idea that things are disappearing too much, but you're right in that if we look forward, right, with AI and the advent of just technology, people are less communicative than they used to be. They're less able to communicate expressively, and they're less eloquent overall, right? And so because of that, people are going to be more defined by what can the algorithm do for me? And at that point in time, there will be just an interesting emotional situation that I can't quite fathom, truly. And again, as you said, when you were talking about just, the ability for us to communicate, I think that the biggest thing that I'm getting from everything, again, is just it's comfort. It's overall just understanding that I'm, of course, special because I'm a person who can do things, but my ego is set, pushed back at the door, and that I'm just as important as everybody else. Yeah. And that whether you're living a life doing nothing on a ranch or whether you're doing a life traveling all the time, they're both equally able to give me understandings of the world that are very valid and important, right? And again, I don't try to tell anybody they should be doing this, they shouldn't be doing this. I try to give people recipes and paths to things that they want to do, if I can and have any knowledge or, insight towards those things. Otherwise, I try to hush and learn from who I can learn from. And yeah, again, this situation of remembering that you can go, be happy and be sad. I want to also be very clear that there's this regular roller coaster of life, right, that we're kind of talking about right now, and that is the ups and the downs and the feelings that you go through. But there's also something that's a little bit different that people go through, and those are the tragedies, right? Those are the things that we have no control over that are absolutely difficult. And
they're going to happen.
They're going to happen to everybody.
Everyone's going to have. Sorry,
right?
Yeah.
And those include things like the deaths or things, the things that sicknesses, health issues, right? The things that really, really make you feel something different, and they're hard to get through. And, whether it's even something like that somebody else is going through that or personally, I lost my hearing when I got sick a couple years ago, and I went from being this guy to super depressed, and I couldn't get myself out of it for a little bit. And I remembered taking notes and going, okay, Caleb, you thought you were this super positive guy, and then you couldn't hear, and then you thought the world was terrible, and you got really mad at it, right? And so check yourself, right? And so, again, was that a learning opportunity for me? Absolutely. So I'm glad I got to go through it. But, people that are having tooth pain or back pain or anything psychological going on, right? There's an issue maybe if they're not happy. It's not necessarily, right, easy for people, and I don't expect it to be easy for people. I expect people to know that there's paths for betterment, right? And to follow and to try to get on one of those paths, because there are paths for the opposite. And a lot of people get stuck on those without realizing it. And we know what those look like, right? So destructive behaviors and whatnot. I think we all do some of them even now, and are trying to trick ourselves that we're not on them, and I'm no different from anybody else in that respect. I am just trying to be very open and honest about the things that I do. So if you ask me, hey, Caleb, do you do this? I'm going to say, yeah, if I do those things, and no, if I don't, because I want feedback and I want to hear if something's really bad for me or not, right? So yeah, that's best I can say from it there. But yeah, when it comes to life and business and things like that, I am interested how you got on. Maybe people have asked you before, but how'd you get the podcast name, right?
Well, I was thinking of how do I make this sound like a scam without it actually being a scam, Right. I there's a part of me that likes pairing things that are like juxtaposed. I love happy music during like a not happy scene in a movie, or vice versa, like really violent music at like a
crazy
really
satire in a sense.
Yeah,
right?
It's just something I really enjoy, and totally legitimate business. For a while I would be calling things totally legit that weren't legit, and it was hilarious. It was just like a joke. And when I decided to start this podcast, I was like, what better way? And it's also funny too. I've talked about this with other guests, but I've had it's caused me problems. Like, there are people that won't come on the show because they read the title of my podcast and they're like, that's not real. That's a scam.
Yeah, no, man. No.
So it's, you know, it was tough to get, you know me, and it was hard to get you out of it. It's like it's a joke, and when I want to have, I do get like people who are very serious about what they do, and they'll be a little apprehensive at first, but once they get into the show, they realize I am actually here. I'm familiar with what you do, and I'm here to prod your brain. And I know I have ponytails and these ridiculous glasses on, but like I am a 100% serious individual. So
right, I was going to say, I and I mean this with all sincerity, I'd be worried if you were the cookie cutter experience that other people are trying to give off, which is, you know what I mean, that just the typical podcast situation, which I know I certainly can fall into, but I hope if people ever watch, they can realize, okay, it's just a little different kind of a person. But at the same time, you know, not only do those things work for you, but I would expect nothing less from you, knowing you myself. And yeah, number two is, it's just when you talk about the name of a podcast, I think that it can hold some weight to it. At the same time, I like irony, and I think people need to just take that with the pill to be swallowed with the whole thing. As far as, you know, hey, there are things that are going to come off very legitimate here in the podcast, conversations that are very real. At the same time, we're supposed to be able to have that sense of relaxing and taking our shoes off, right? So, you know, have some fun. But yeah, I think it's going to work for you either way, if people see it one way or not, because again, we're mixing the bag here, and we're going to have both. And I'll make sure that we put a little bit, I'll throw some recipes, some systems, some tools that I use, so at least somebody's going to be able to help
gain something from it. Yeah,
with some knowledge, you know, hopefully.
Well, and you know, like I'm in the process of like this started out as just me telling people about conspiracies, and again, the joke there is like, totally legitimate business, and I'm talking about conspiracies, most of which are just horseshit, you know. I mean, like it's the juxtaposition of like what is totally legit about a completely unconfirmable conspiracy. But it's just I have found that it was valuable for me to be able to again, like, look at these very dark topics and sinister scenarios, and kind of in a pretty nihilistic, but a positive nihilistic way, laugh at it, just laugh at the ridiculous nature of life. You know, I don't know. There's probably some like bigger comment on society I could be making, but I just thought it was hilarious. It was a hilarious juxtaposition. Right.
As you said, maybe there's a bigger comment. Well, we'll get there. It'll show itself when the time is right. You know,
exactly.
That's part of the thing. Is I'm trying not to force things myself, and I see a lot of people out there getting money behind things, investing, and they have this big purpose of this idea that they need to get out. And nothing against anybody who's got a purpose. Keep your purpose. Go for that idea. Follow your gut. Always and every single time, do it. But there's a lot of people out there that are following the money and that are following the trend. And that's huge. There's a lot of that. Most of it. I get paid a lot of the times because I have my little marketing services company by people that want to do that. And I'm not for that. And I tell people straight up, I don't do dishonest marketing. I do honest marketing. So if this is your goal and this is your output, this is what we'll talk about. But I won't say anything dishonest. I do anyways. I've lost a lot of clients, truly, because of that issue, right? And again, so I know the difference. And part of what helps me get clients is I can tell the clients that I'm getting, hey, I don't do this, and these are the people who are doing these things, because I don't have an NDA with them, and I also don't like that stuff, right?
Right.
So again, I'm not going to blast people here on podcasts, but if I'm working with you, I will tell you who to watch out for and who not to, work with and whatnot, and I can also show the receipts. Because again, truth should be truth and reality should be reality, right? And if more people are seeing things, then more people will understand things. Again, I've got no quarrels for people that want to do things their own way. There's just a lot of good paths out there, and there's just some of the negative ones. Let's stay away from the negative ones, guys. Come on. So again, deceitful practices are very obvious, and we all can kind of come up with many ideas of what those things look like. Again, Again, I'm getting lost, but what I'm trying to say is that, marketing practices be appropriate. Now, what was I saying? I did get lost now.
Well, something to the effect of live your truth, live your truth.
Live your truth is always a good thing to follow by. Yeah, it is, especially when you're talking on a podcast. You don't want to be dishonest, because people can then see what you do and they can look back and they can say, hey, years ago you said this, and then now you're saying that. What gives? No. And again, I'm completely cool with changing my mind about things overall, because I want to be somebody who grows. But at the same time, people who are just completely dishonest about what they do and why they do things, that blows my mind. And part of what I get to do now is I do a lot of UGC product videos and things where I'm working with brands that want to collaborate and promote products that are outside of the marketing company, that are just, hey, we know you like to do videos. Would you like to work with our brand? We'll send you a product. You make something, right? And in that world, I get things, and if it works, it works. I can show it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'm not going to show it, right? Very simple, right? And so it's such a simple concept. Also, like, if I'm not getting paid for something, I'm not getting paid for something. If I'm getting paid for something, hey, everybody, this is a sponsored ad.
I'm getting paid for this. Yeah.
I'm getting paid for it. This is no longer a review. This is a sponsored ad, right? Which I have no problem getting sponsored, doing sponsored ads, but they're different from a basic free review, right? You know what I mean? And so again, I there's almost every creator that I know that kind of works in this field. Not almost every, I would say half of them are very dishonest in this way, right?
Sure.
And the other half have just no problem. Again, from a 2 + 2 = 4 perspective, it makes zero sense for me to try to hide any of that. I want to let people know when I'm working with brands so that I work with more brands and more people want to pay me. And then when I'm getting free stuff and doing it that way, I want the people to know so that they understand the product and the value of that. Anyways, I'm getting lost in here. I just, talking about, again, living truth and being a certain way. Well, I want to show people there's a way to be, right, in this new future world with AI, marketing, and social media that's very genuine and non-depressing, repressive, and scary. You know what I mean? That's actually open and fulfilling in a way that's communicative and actually honest. Yeah. Truly. Hey, it's possible. So I just hear much negative stuff about social media, which is true.
Right.
But it's just a perspective.
And I think you hit on a good point too. Like there's definitely like I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on this, but there's like this huge dehumanization component that comes along with AI and definitely the media landscape that we're finding ourselves in now. And I would agree with you. It's not to say we can't have all of these nice technical additions to our life and also retain humanity. But I think a lot of people, they get so lost in the fear of us losing humanity and the trend for people to be consumed by these things instead of having it add something to your life. But that in some way, like, what's the phrase I'm looking for here? Like it makes that the future, like, because people are stressing about it and worrying about it, it materializes. It's self-fulfilling prophecy.
Self-fulfilling prophecy, absolutely, right? And that happens and will continue to happen, just as a placebo effect will, trick our minds into thinking a sugar pill is going to make us healthy as long as the doctor gives it to us, right?
Right.
If we're worried about something, that's going to happen inevitably as well. This is something I talk to every single student I have, and I teach marketing, I teach AI, I teach English to foreign entrepreneurs and just people who are trying to come to the country, right? Anyways, so main thing is, and as I was just saying is, actually, wow, I'm just losing my train of thought in the middle of saying what I'm saying. Wow. So let me go right back on what I was saying.
The worry of the self-fulfilling prophecy of the dehumanization with AI and technology.
Well, yeah. Oh, okay. Actually, wow. Let me take a quick little moment on this one.
Yeah, sure.
Because I what happens is, and I do this often, I get this great idea and I start building this thing and I start building this whole compartment or this whole idea, and then the stilts get kicked out at the bottom and the whole kind of thing. I go, whoa, where was I again?
What was I
it's something I get to teach every single student that I have, which is, there's a lot of things that I teach every student, but this thing. Well, let's roll back the footage real quick. Oh man, I don't like to lose ideas and thoughts in the middle of it. We'll have to come back to it, I guess, in the sense that I just lost it. Dang.
Well, like how do you personally balance that? Like, how do you, as somebody who is complete, and like you have also been like a huge proponent of VR, AR but you're one of the first people that I knew who were into it and putting it out there. Like, how do you balance I'm going to use all these tools, but I'm not going to let it take away from my human experience kind of deal?
Well, exactly. I mean, as you say, the AI is a tool. It's something that I see, and when we talk about humans using tools, there's this early thing that came around with AI, which was, okay, AI copyright. Okay, people are saying, is this image belonging to a person? Can they actually copyright an image if it was made with the AI generator or an AI generator, right? Stable Diffusion at the time. And that was a big debate. And they eventually said, no, you can't, right? It's a derivative that's not something that that person actually made, even though they prompted it. They weren't able to actually keep the works in that way. And people talk about it overall. And what I say is that, it's supposed to be used as a tool, not as a replacement. I think I'm kind of remembering what we were talking about before a little bit. And now that is that whole idea that when you see AI used as a replacement, or anything used as a replacement for people, it usually becomes pretty creepy and something we don't usually interact with as well.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Again, anytime you replace the human completely from a situation, right? When we use this as a tool, as a sidekick, as a buddy, all right, or as an assistant, it becomes very useful and something that we can't ignore the use of it. Again, just as a tool, if I'm using a hammer and my job is to put nails in, I need the hammer to put the nails in. It's going to take me a long time to do it without it. Okay, I wouldn't not use the hammer now that we know the hammer's there, just as I wouldn't not use AI to assist me with text-based projects now that I know I have this text-based, unemotional thing that doesn't get tired or worn out, right? And is consistent over
and
time.
Can do it way faster than think about things way faster than I could.
Right. So as we're talking about AI, though, I am very passionate about this because I like AI, but I'm also somebody who grew up in Nebraska, who grew up camping, who grew up with my job as detasseling on the farms, and I really appreciate and admire people who can just be out there living it and toughing it, right? With what nature gives you, right? But let's just say that
real
again.
Analog life. Analog life.
But look at what a human is. I mean, we can get real philosophical, we can get spiritual, we can talk about a lot of things, and I usually do. But overall, look at us humans, right? We're not very adept to the world outside. We have to have a structure to live in, right? We need tools. Otherwise, we're not very useful, okay?
Yeah.
We're not. By ourselves. I mean, again, we're very creative when we use our hands, but even then, with my hands, I can do some limited chalk art and stuff like that. Yeah. But if I want to actually create very intricate drawings, I then use a pencil or a pen. That pencil or a pen is a tool. That pencil or a pen is a tool that I'm using that's not me. When I'm using AI, if I'm prompting something, I'm using a tool that's not me to prompt something that's then doing something that I couldn't do by myself. Okay, see, there's a relative thing here, although that does transform. There's a line at some point that becomes crossed. When I say I want a beautiful picture of a face, and it draws this beautiful picture of a face that I had nothing to do with, and it, you know what I mean? It looks like something I would never do. Did I make that? Right? Did I have anything to do with that whatsoever? Where if I prompt very detailed every little thing, and you can almost see everything I prompted in it, well, I had a little bit more to do with it then. So, but again, where's the line being crossed? And I think, again, we have to be the normal humans we are and be distinctive of what these things are. This was used with an AI tool, okay, an AI generative media tool. This one was used with a pencil. This one used with a pen. We certainly don't judge watercolors the same as we do pastels, right? They're different places, right? They're different categories. And so AI artwork should be an artwork category that's just a different category. All right, solved. Next. It's just categorizing things as what they are, right? And understanding that and being able to be distinctive as a human, which is what we, have the benefit of being able to do. And so when it comes to AI overall, I use it as an assistant, not as a replacement. And moving forward, as I try to teach people how to use it, the more communicative you can be, the better you can use the specific words that you want to use, the better the responses are going to get, the more accurate and the more helpful this tool becomes, right? And again, as I said, as we both mentioned kind of earlier, is that, as society continues forward, we see this trend happening, but there's also this other thing where AI needs new, good data to continue getting smarter.
Yeah.
Unless you believe in the AGI, right, the artificial general intelligence, which currently, as far as we're aware, doesn't exist for us.
Sure. Yeah. Right? Not on this level of society.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So otherwise, again, and then to do that, we have to have a computational power and some kind of a fusion system because the amount of energy and blah, 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 blah. Trust me, there's a lot of information that goes in with that one, as we all know, right? But I think this whole AI thing is at some point we do start getting the dragon, the snake that eats its tail, right? And the data starts becoming not as good as it was. And we've already got people who are yelling, hey, we need more data. A lot of big companies are yelling that at the moment. So again, at some point when all of the books you're reading are full of AI data and all of the conversations or the internet are being automatically created by AI, something happens here that's not quite right. So I think you and I and our generation and the generations that are maybe older need to sit there and, hey, not that the younger ones are bad. Hey, I like younger generations are great, and you know so much that we don't know. But these older generations, we have this connection that we can communicate. We can do things without the internet, without cell phones. Right?
To the
we
life
can even calculate.
Before. Yeah.
Some of us can even calculate without a calculator. Yeah. And those are going to be really useful skills forever. So, especially moving forward.
Well, and I think, you hit on a couple really good, important things, and there's definitely a tie-in to, you as a dad are an awesome dad, okay? And you're probably one of the few people I see, because you're transparent with having these discussions about technology and life, and exposing your kids to technology and the benefits to technology. That's what the thing that probably I'm most concerned about is that most people are not doing that. And I'm interested in, like, as a father, what are the things that you're trying to teach your son with regards to the technology? Kind of they're not going to know a life before the internet. They won't know that. We're the last generation that knows life before the internet. Mm-hmm. And how do you balance, this is going to be a part of your life, my child, but we also have to remember that there's like this human component to life that is debatably just as, if not more important. And, recognizing these things as a tool and not a crutch. I wonder if you can expand on that. I mean, you obviously do it with some of the content that you make, but like, what are the deeper thoughts with how you approach that?
Very insightful question there, and I feel like it's a plant because I think about this a lot. I think about this topic quite a bit, and obviously partly because I'm a father, I have to think about it, and I have another baby daughter on the way, growing up. So I'm thinking about what's the future going to be like.
She'll be there soon.
Growing up in the world that, as we kind of see, is already going to have a whole different reality than we've been living in, especially if some other things come to light, with NHI, right? And so, we'll go into that a little bit later.
We can get into that later.
Yeah. We can go into that. When you said the word conspiracy, I said, I used to have a conspiracy blog, buddy. Bring it on. Let's go there. Again, that's part of the reason you want to have a podcast, so that you have a voice, so you have a place to be able to express yourself and talk about things that you want to talk about, and learn. Truly, I can't even overstate this enough, that although I do find myself in my head thinking I'm pretty smart sometimes, I'm under no illusion that I know everything, and I really genuinely want people to be able to call me out when I'm wrong about something, or to give me information, or to send me a link. And I found early on by making YouTube videos that when I would talk about subjects, when I would talk about things, that people would correct me. They would throw me links to things, and very quickly I became a very smart person with the things that I used to be very stupid about. All right, it's the best way I can say that, maybe. And so, the wisdom came because of the ignorance, right? And people would call it out. And so the more ignorant I could be publicly, the more wisdom I would then gain back, which then made it so I was smarter and smarter. And as a teacher, I learned that I want to teach my students everything I know so that they walk away smarter than me. You should never walk into a classroom and walk out stupider than your teacher. No, you should walk out smarter than your teacher, because you know what you know plus what they know, right? And all the stuff that your students have been teaching you, all the classes, you should always walk out smarter than the teacher, always, right? That teacher's not doing their job properly. Again, so as a dad, same kind of thing I want to teach my son. If he's not going to be a smarter human than me, I'm not doing my dad job properly, right? I'm not teaching him what I know. And so it's kind of, number one, logic statements. 2 + 2 = 4. I have to say, is this good for him? Is this the right age? Is this appropriate, right? All those questions are being asked. And then some people will look at what I do and they say, oh, well, he's got social media, or you let him play VR, or some of these things, and they'll question it. Say, is there going to be virtual reality in the future? Will there be social media in the future? Absolutely, right? And should he be taken away from these things so he overindulges them later? Or should he overindulge in them now? So no. Maybe there's a balance, again, to cause distinction, or to create distinctions in the world, that, hey, there is the ability with effort to actually control your child and give them 15 minutes of this, and to talk to them about why and when that they can use things, which I do with my son, right? So when it comes to technology, I'm trying to teach him what I know, what I think, and again, not every single thing, but I'm trying to do those logic discussions with myself. So with virtual reality, I can play for a couple hours. He can play for 15 minutes at a time, right? Because he needs to understand that world, see what it looks like. He used to love Blue's Clues as a kid. I set the green screen up. I wasn't breaking his world. I wasn't hurting him. I threw on the Blue's Clues background. I put him in Blue's Clues. I recorded an episode with him that never made it publicly, right? We did it for ourselves. And I showed him how that worked so that when he's watching the show, he doesn't get disillusioned to the point to where he's tricked by it. He's actually enjoying it. He knows what Steve, that Josh is doing in the show, and he knows what the people are and how they're kind of interacting, but he still likes it and loves it actually, right? And then so YouTube, I learned very early that every kid in the world wants to be a YouTuber, right? So my kid's still 2 years old. I'm hearing this. So I don't want my kid to be a YouTuber, all right? So I gave him a YouTube channel early on so we could make YouTube videos so he could see the process of it. We don't have this, you need to make a video every week. No, we made a video once a month for a couple months, and then we do them when they're convenient, when we want to. I still get notes from him, that one right next to me, it's in the other room now, that he says, I love making videos with you, Dad. Right? We don't make them very often. We do them from time to time, but when we do them, we have fun doing it. He usually gets to be the complete brainchild of what we're going to do because it's his way to be creative, right? I do the editing, and then he sits with me while we do that process, right? So he learns what it looks like, the process of it. Again, I want him to understand it, not be obsessed with it, right?
Yeah.
And I do want to say, if you want to be an influencer, stop. You need to do something. And that thing that you do that you're proficient at, that thing, photography, videography, marketing, whatever, do stuff. And then when you get good at those things, then you can tell people about those things. Then you influence about those things, right? That's not an influencer. I don't want to ever be called an influencer, right? Which some people say. I'm a person who wants to do a lot of things, and then I want to bring other people along the ride. So I want to teach other people. I want to show other people what it's like. But by no means do I have, again, this disillusionment that any one person is better at showing other people a pathway, right? If that makes sense, right? And when it comes to products especially, right? I every company who reaches out to me to want to send something, they always say, do you know anybody else who wants to like get this stuff and record a video, whether they like it or not, just to show it off, right? Do you know any? It's hard to find people that just want to honestly open up stuff and talk about it, believe it or not, right? It's not easy. So that's why I get more opportunities. It's not because I'm somebody special. It's just because I'm willing to do that. And again, if something doesn't work, I don't have to show it. I don't have to promote anything that's not, appropriate or that's something that I care about, in that way, shape or form. Again, there's a lot of things I don't necessarily care about, but if it works, it works. All right.
It might work for somebody who this would be applicable to. Yeah.
Right. And so my son, he's going to see these things. He's going to see what I'm going to do. He's going to see what other people are going to do. And the worst thing I can do as a father is make him curious about it and to not know it to the point to where now he either devotes time he shouldn't to it or ignores it because it's so impossible. Right.
Yeah.
No. When I was young, I was very fortunate. My family wasn't rich, but my stepdad was in production, and I got to see a lot of rock stars close up. And then when that would happen, I would say they're real people. Okay. And even though I didn't have a lot of money growing up, I thought, okay, they're real people. And then having friends such as yourself that are rock stars, right? I mean it, right? Yeah. And then going, okay, I get to be friends with these kind of people. Again, people think these guys are all super cool, and they're good people. They're nice people, right? That understanding is something that always kind of stayed with me, and I want to express that, right? So yeah, you can have a lot of riches in life, but if you're not just genuinely happy and honest with yourself, it's very
What's
cliche sounding, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, come on. It's not enjoyable. And we hear too many stories of people that have it all and something then terrible happens, right? I don't want that. I don't want to trick people on the outside and then have some crazy thing, crazy thing happen. I want to be very open about it. And then again, one thing I find in life that makes me feel better, less anxiety, is thinking of things as recipes, right? I love food. Grew up, huge food nerd.
Who doesn't?
Food classes. Yeah, come on, man. Come on, food, right? Especially in barbecues and I used to cook a lot. I used to bake a lot growing up, and that was one thing I felt separated me a little bit from other people, is that I was a little bit more sentimental. Again, when you're sentimental, when you're emotional and you like to bake, people can call you names. People can put you in a box. People can even think that maybe your sexual preferences aren't what they, they are. And they tell you these things all the time. And it's like, man, I know who I am. I know what I like.
I just wanted to make some friggin' cookies. Relax.
I'm thinking about being that husband later on in life, right? And I'm trying to think about that future life goals, guys. Why pick a fence, and I love bread, right? And cinnamon rolls. Come on, guys.
I'm the same. I love baking. that to me is like the recipe analogy is super applicable.
When it comes to baking, if I take eggs and I take milk and I take butter, I take a little bit of salt, right? And I take all these things, some sugar, right? And flour, I put it in a bowl, I mix it up 350 for 30 minutes, I've got myself a cake. got myself a cake right there. And you know what? If you put those ingredients together and do very similar things, you're going to have yourself a cake. It's going to be a little bit different, right? It's going to be a little bit different because that's, again, how it's all just your style, my style. There's a little differences in how we do it, timing, whatnot. So, right, our cakes are going to be a little bit different, but they're each going to be cakes. And that's what I'm trying to tell people is, okay, when I see somebody do something successfully, I go, what were their ingredients to do that thing? And how did they put them together? And what was their timing like? And you know what? Sometimes there's multiple recipes to get to the same outcome. I'm not saying there's only one recipe. My point is, when you don't know how to do something, you can look over and you can find an initial recipe at the very least, right? And you can see how it's being put together. And you can say, do I have those things? Do I have the equipment and the ingredients, right? And the time. And if you do, well, I can then get that thing. And if I can get that thing, then I can do it once. If I can do it once, I call it the duping effect, where I can now do it multiple times. Right? Lots of times. And I started doing this when I was younger, getting out of high school. I had that kind of scarcity mentality, a victim and scarcity mentality, dangerous combination, very dangerous, right? But I also didn't want to be a victim. I wanted to get out of that hole. And scarcity is something I really wasn't sure of. I thought maybe there was abundance out there, right?
Yeah.
And so I started reading and started pushing myself to this different idea. And one thing is, especially with YouTube, I started watching videos. And again, I'll be very honest. One thing I saw early on was somebody opening up computer parts and graphics cards. And they were like, thanks, Intel, for sending me this crap. And you could tell they didn't really care. And their mentality was not the way I felt somebody should be as far as appreciative, right? I should felt you can tell he's not honest. Number one, my brain's hitting these signals. I see these body behaviors. And I thought to myself, if I got something like that, I would be so happy. And I would be genuine to the camera, wow. And so then I thought, well, why don't I try to start doing that? Because if you make videos, they will send you stuff because it's free commercials for the companies, right? It's going to cost a company $2,000 to get a video made. If they send you the stuff, you make the video for free, UGC, baby, right? We got some free content out there. You don't have a big following? No big deal. They can put it on their network. They still get the content out there, right?
Yeah.
It's not about views. It's not about subscribers. It's not about followers. It's about just making the video. And so when I saw people doing this, I thought, okay, so I bought something, right? Didn't get something for free. I bought something on Amazon and I made a video about it, showing how it worked, what it did, talked about it, used it, did an update video later on, got 10,000 views on those couple videos, right? Giving value to the community, people who wanted to know about that thing. So giving value to others, doing something that cost me money, right? Spending time and effort and an investment, right? And then I had that video and those views, which again, the views don't really matter. They really don't. I had the video, which mattered.
The finished content.
I could take that and I could send that to other companies and say, hey, would you like a review of this? Would you like a review of that? I kind of need to get some memory. Would you like a review of this? Most people would say no, especially but 10% are going to say yeah, right? Truly, because they want content creators. They don't want to pay people. They just want free content. You're going to make content? Sure. We'll try you out. If you don't do it, probably, again, we're not going to send you more stuff. If you're critical of us in a way that's not helpful, that's rude. But if you're critical in a way that's helpful, which I am often, this should do this should do this, I would like it if it did this, they listen and they like it. Again, it's not so I know I'm kind of going this whole little lesson here, but this idea is something where the process is something where I saw the ingredients of what other people were doing. I saw the process, I saw the recipe, right? And I kind of then started to put it into play, and very quickly I started to see the results, right, with that. And so I started doing affiliation marketing while I was doing an eBay business, and affiliate marketing started taking off, and I started a 3D printing business, okay? I'm kind of jumping ahead now, but...
No, this is great, dude. We're flowing.
As far as the 3D printing business, this gets back to that whole duping effect, right? I had this victim scarcity mentality, but I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew things that were possible, right? And that's when I started paying attention really hardcore to what these recipes were so that I could try them out for myself before I said the world was rigged. I wanted to say, hey, maybe I should try some stuff out, right? Put some effort into these things. And basically I met a guy online, also named Caleb. His name's actually Caleb Craft. He's a really cool guy. He worked for a magazine at the time, just happened to live in the same city that I lived in, right? And there's a whole virtual reality side of things that I can talk about, which I'm kind of skipping over right now. But on this side of things, when I was, making content and working on my professional life, I reached out to this guy basically and said, hey, you can come over and play some VR stuff that I just got that nobody else really has, because I was a brand new VR developer that had some stuff from Meta that nobody else had in America at the time. Pretty cool. And he said, okay, I'll come over there. And I said, if you let me borrow your little 3D printer that you're making little stories of that I see on social media. And he said, yeah, I'll let you borrow it for a week. I said, perfect, right? So I took his little 3D printer and I had it for a week, and then he came over, played with the controllers, did some things. We met each other, a connection, right? Again, I have a little anxiety, but I know this is cool for me. I'm outweighing the possibilities. It's just way better for me to meet people and to try to push myself, right? And do those things. And yeah, I basically took those videos of that 3D printer. I made 4 or 5 of them while I had it for that week, and I printed everything I could. I had it running constantly, right? I took those videos and I sent them to a bunch of people who had 3D printers, and I said, hey, would you please be interested in sending me a printer so I could make some content for that, right? 55 3D printers later, I had... Right, I've given away 20 printers. I've sold probably 10 printers. Dude. I still have 30 printers in my garage.
Oh my God, that's
when people come over, they're like, it's like, well, if I want to make something, I got an army ready to go.
Yeah, seriously, right? It's a whole.
But I used to upgrade
line.
them all. Right, I used to put Raspberry Pis and cameras and lights on all of them so I could make not just content. And trust me, my desire and my ambition was always the stuff itself, the activity of playing with the stuff. I liked making the thing. It's like putting a puzzle together with a million pieces over and over and over and over again in little different ways. And that was addicting, super addicting, right? But again, the benefit came from then you got affiliation income that goes that way. But on the side, again, I was never driven by money. And this is a problem because, in part, because I wasn't that mature, because you should care a little bit about the money if you have an opportunity, right? You should. And I was genuinely so like, let's just do whatever's fun, right? And I just was doing a whole bunch of stuff. But anyways, at the same time, I was trying to pursue this virtual reality development, which again we can kind of jump into in a second. So there was this pull of two things constantly. If there's this product area, and then there's this development side of things, which I actually eventually cut off the products. I cut off all the affiliation income. I cut off that entire section of what I was doing to pursue the VR development, to focus in one area. And I'm glad I did it, because there's many reasons, and we kind of go into that a little bit of what kind of happened after that point. But without focus, you get lost in going every direction. And we kind of mentioned this earlier in the podcast where, we said that you mentioned how the world can kind of do one thing with AI. And yeah, again, if we think of the world in a bad way, the self-fulfilling prophecy comes into play, because whatever you think of usually is what happens, is what I found. And growing up, because I had the scarcity mindset and because I had the victim mentality, I always thought, poor me and this bad thing's going to happen. And then poor me and the bad thing happened. Over and over in my 20s, bad things happened. And you know what? I was imagining them into sequence every single time. If I go back and I'm really, really honest about it. It's not easy to be honest about this truly, because I would love to say the world did it to me. I would love to say that, right? The reality is I was really paying attention to those things. And even some of the bad things happened recently in life. Man, I predicted those things. Well, not necessarily predicted, but let them happen, right? And allowed myself to learn from it, because I almost knew I needed to. But regardless of that, what I pay attention to now is the things that I want. And the things that I actually care about. And the only thing I put in my mind is not the stuff I don't want, which we get those thoughts and they come in and I go, I don't want that, so bye. But what I do want is to be happy today. Because even yesterday, a little piece of, for a moment, you start to feel this little thing of, I remember that bad feeling, and nope, I don't want that, right? It's not easy, and I'm not ignoring it. I'm aware that it's there. Taking a deep breath.
Just not giving it the power. I'm not giving it the power anymore.
Exactly. What do I care about? Again, I'm not under some crazy idea that it can't happen, that you can't go there, but the understanding that going there is going to allow me to, and has the ability to bounce back up, and that it can be great, right? And not trying to get lost in it. Again, and I jump all over when I talk, but AI can be very useful in this stage now, because we never had a little buddy before that you could open up on your phone and you'd be like, oh my God, I'm feeling really crazy right now. My head's feeling destructive and I don't know what to do. And AI is going to be like, hey there, buddy, don't worry. You're a great guy. Just relax, right? Like we have this little instant, and that's like a shrink for some people, or, a counselor for others, and do what you got to do. But for myself personally, I like actually having technology there to kind of be like, no. This is the way things are supposed to be. You're supposed to treat yourself right. Which is actually how it does talk to people. I know there's stories of this and that of it being bad. Overall, again, AI does what people say, which people say you're supposed to be treated right and treat yourself right? And that's the reality. So, and again, I got lost in it, but yeah, overall, I try to treat my kids, right, and give them the right direction.
Well, dude, like this is a lot of the stream of consciousness that you just had is the same thing as I think about having a family. It's like the number one concern of mine is like making sure that I'm interacting with technology in a healthy way, which I think I do. I really do. I think both me and my wife do. And like in part to my kid, this is a super. We don't want to ignore these tools. You're going to have to use them. I'm choosing to use them for the most part. You're going to have to use them. So you can't be afraid. You have to understand what they are. But we also have to understand that, especially the way the media landscape is constructed right now, it's a dopamine farm. And they want your attention. They want your eyeballs. And to avoid getting into like the blue light is destroying my brain portion of the conversation, it's like we have to understand that there is a healthy balance, and as much time as you spend playing with these things and using them to benefit your life, nothing is going to replace literally baking. Like that's a thing that I didn't even realize that I used that as a stress reducer until I got married.
In general, but baking specifically,
100%, dude. Because it's like there's a formula. It's literally science. I'm performing science here. There's a chemical reaction that I'm putting together, measuring these components out, and then you can get into the point where you get so familiar with the recipe and you're like, okay, well, I know this recipe and this recipe. What if I take things from this one and things from this one and combine? Like, for a while, my wife and I were strictly vegan, and I was deep into how do I make the best vegan baked goods? How do I make vegan baked goods that don't taste like cardboard? And it was a lot of like heavy experimentation, understanding the benefits of this recipe and the ingredients, and this recipe and the ingredients, and how do I combine them so I get the best of both things. That's like a tangible human experience. Humans have been doing this shit for hundreds of years, thousands of years, using that as a tool just as much as I use Pro Tools, or using that as a way to disperse the anxiety or stress that I'm feeling in the same way that I would use my guitar to disperse that energy. I don't know. All of that is top shelf stuff, and it's something I feel like a lot of parents today definitely are not doing. And I think a lot of them are looking at technology as a tool, but more as like, my kid is bored, take the iPad. But then not doing any of the other back end, kind of like what you're talking about. Like, yeah, my kid will use these things, but only for a certain amount of time. They're only going to be doing things that are age appropriate to them. They're not going to have unfiltered access to the very scary internet that exists.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, it's impossible when you give a kid a device to completely restrict what they will see, because even in like the good Roblox world, half the things on Roblox are either inappropriate or super scary. Yeah. Which just sucks, because Roblox is a great game for kids. Truly, it's a great game, but there's so much poison in it. Some
questionable content. Yeah.
So much poison involved as well, for sure. So again, when it comes to that, does it mean they don't get Roblox because there's poison in it? Or does it mean you have to actually pay attention as a parent if you want them to engage in that? Well, it means you actually have to pay attention as a parent to engage in that. And it's not easy. And I'm not perfect at it, but my kid knows I'm present. And I can tell that when I do see something inappropriate, or when he does, he's very quick to, nope, I didn't.
Don't want to be on that.
Don't worry, I'm not looking at it. And even the way he acts, you can either tell whether they're lying or not, right? And you can tell when they're very much like, oh no, I don't mess with that stuff. You told me enough that I don't want to mess with that right now, right? And the curiosity takes over at some point, right? But again, being there as a parent, being present, I think is part of the battle. And just before I go into my whole little rant that I want to go into with you're talking about using the guitar to communicate, because there's a whole thing with that. I think that. Or to express yourself, right, to feel comfortable and feel calm. There's this whole idea with just kids using technology in general. And I guess the biggest thing is, as you said, the timing is partly that, and it's the things that you do with it, right? It's the things that you're doing with the technology. If you're using a computer to just watch videos, and well, what videos are you watching, right? If I'm listening to a podcast, I'm learning some stuff. If I'm watching basic entertainment, that's another thing, right? And again, they both have value. Right. Entertainment's very valuable and very useful, right? I just try to ask myself that 2 + 2 = 4 question and say, is this something that I can either help, or maybe is this a teaching moment, right? And again, my kid has a Switch. That was a big thought process. Do I get him one or not? And what I realized was, with social skills, a lot of these kids early on are starting to play some games together, and I'm very, very happy that I was able, not everybody, able to get one for him, for a present. And because now he has these social experiences that he's he acts like a 10-year-old in good ways and is still a 6-year-old in other good ways, right? But at the same time, when he's using it built in, he's looking around every 10 minutes. We have this look around rule, plus we could put an app on it where he has to stretch his eyes, right? We don't use in dark environments. We also have to watch our neck and our posture.
Yep.
Again, I don't yell at him, but I say, hey man, so by the way, we turn all the electronics off. I say, hey, by the way, one of the problems that happens is that kids get staring at the game too much, especially in dark environments, or too close, and they don't blink, and then they get nearsightedness, and they need glasses. Another thing is their posture gets really bad because they get like this, and they become all messed up. Right? I explain to him the problems, what happens, and that I don't want him to have those problems, and that I love him, right? And what I've found is that by doing that to almost everything that I can think about, when the thought comes, hey man, this is the thought, rather than trying to like just almost do the parenting first thought, which is like, don't say anything to him, I just tell him straight up what and why I'm doing it. Actually, I'm very honest with him about things. And he's like, got it. Okay. And I need to stretch my eyes. And if I say, hey, check your eyes, he doesn't go, why? He goes, oh, yeah, I want my eyes to be good. I want to have good, fresh eyes. So he's like, yeah, stretching them out, right? Oh, got to tell Amazon to be quiet. Sorry. I said something. The AI's rebelling. I've got 3 AI speakers in this room, plus the AI glasses, so we have to be careful what we say. Having said that, I don't want to overstate this because I know that kids are always different. There's a whole nurture versus nature debate, and some kids just don't listen the same as others. But if you have a kid that you can sit down and talk to and listen, 9 times out of 10, it's going to make the parenting a lot easier because a lot of the problems don't then develop. We'll still have hard things to go through, but some of those basic things that you see on the movies and the TV shows that you think, oh, I don't want to go through that, I don't go through it. And it's not because my life's not special, or like, you know what I mean, like anybody else's. It's just because I have taken the effort that I'm seeing many others take the effort to do, and I'm benefiting from it. Right. And again, there are difficulties that I do go through and that I will continue to go through, and things that I can't see yet. I'm sure of it, guys. Hey, I'm very aware of it. But again, I see a lot of other parents that are currently going through things that are just very obvious to how to avoid them. Right. And again, I don't want to be better than those people. I want to teach and I want to show people, hey,
there's another way.
Yeah, use your gut. And again, but being active is fun. And a lot of times we grow up thinking that the word hard is not fun. The word hard, right? Because we define things and then we have these connotations in our brain. The word hard seems like it's not fun. But as you said, the struggle for you is something that you're going to learn from. You've developed the understanding that hard is actually fun often. So hard to you doesn't mean not fun, right? The average person, the word hard means not fun to their brain, right? And so I've also now developed where hard means bring it on. Hard means, woohoo, something great's going to happen, actually, right? And when I see a black abyss, if I don't know what's going to be there, rather than being scared that a monster is going to pop out at me, my brain doesn't believe in those monsters anymore. My brain believes in opportunities. So when I see the black abyss and I don't know what's going to happen, my brain goes, woo, something exciting is going to happen.
What could be beyond this?
Right?
Yeah.
Wow. You know what I mean? So life is constantly full of these black abysses, and it should be, because otherwise you're a fortune teller and it's not really exciting. And when these things happen, as they will always continue to happen, as long as it's not a tragedy situation, we're going to be super excited about it, right? Again, tragedy situations. How do you get through tragedy situations, guys? There's no recipe for that. It's people. It's people. It's communication and time, right? That's the recipe I can give for that. Communication, people, time, and sometimes space. There's a whole lot of things there, right? But again, I want to put that in its own bracket because I never want to be ignorant to some people's problems that they're going through, right?
Sure.
And that tragedy has its own little bubble that it sits in besides the everyday stuff that we kind of talk about, I feel. So, but yeah, progress is the one thing you mentioned to me when you said baking is something that you like to do as well. When we follow a recipe, when we go step by step, we then experience the feeling of progress. And with baking, as you said, it's scientific. We know kind of the solution as long as we follow the rules, what's going to happen. And then when it happens, we get this moment of joy because we get to eat it and we get to experience sharing with other people. And of course, just the smells and all the beauty that comes from just making something, right? Creating something, I think, as a person. So I feel like that progress bar gets hit like boing, 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 boing when you're cooking, like so many times, right? Ding, ding, ding. It gets hit a lot. And for humans, we always know progress equals happiness. So how do you keep yourself motivated? How do you keep yourself doing stuff? Well, keep yourself with things that provide progress, right? And so if somebody's baking every day, they're getting a little boost, right? I love you, bye. Sorry, there, now he's finally leaving now. Love you too. So for myself, I'll say this right now. I tell my students this because I have a hard time like anybody else waking up out of bed, but I wake up every day with purpose and intent. So that means I'm going to wake up and say, I'm going to try to have a good day. Not because it's going to be an easy day, not because everything's going to be simple, not because people are going to be super nice to me, because there might be some people that cut me off on the road. There might be something bad that happens. I might get rear-ended, right? Something bad might happen to me today, right? But I'm going to try to have a good day. So it means no matter what happens, I'm going to try to be who I want to be, right? So if somebody yells at me and says, you suck, I'm not going to say, you suck back. They're going to say, you suck, and I'm going to say, I'm sorry you feel that way. I hope you have a better day. Because I want to have a good day and I want to be a good person, right? Because that was my goal today when the day started, regardless of what you decided to do, right? I'm not going to be a transactional person. I'm going to be an intentional person. And that took effort, and still takes effort, and every day it will take effort. But man, being in control is so much more comfortable than being anxious of what if. Because the what if is if somebody yells at me, I have to yell back at them, right? That's the what if. Well, and I took away the what if. Right? Again, it's not easy, but it took power to control, and now I'm in control of what I want to do because I made a decision and I want to be a nice person to people. And that actually started to happen when I was making YouTube videos. People would say something like, you suck, in a YouTube comment. And I would think I could respond back with, you suck. But then I thought, everybody's going to see that. And then all these people are going to think Caleb's like a child, right? So people would say, you suck, and I would respond back with, oh man, that's not a nice thing to say. It took me like 16 hours to edit this video and like a day and a half to like record this video, and like I took effort into this, and man, you're not a very nice guy. Enter comment, right? Now everybody can read that, and you know what would happen? 9 times out of 10 that guy would respond back with, I'm sorry, man, you're like
right,
a cool guy.
I was being
I apologize. Yeah, I was just throwing off some steam. I didn't expect you to comment back. 9 times out of 10 they are actually buddies because they engaged with me in the first. If somebody's engaging with you, guess what? You resonate with them.
Yeah.
You're tuning with them in some way, whether they hate you or like you, right? If they're engaging with you, comment, you're resonating with them. Again, doesn't mean you have to engage back. I'm not saying that. My point is my perspective shifted, and I started saying, you know what? I'm just going to be honest with how I really feel about things and what's going on. And you know what? That's my power, is that by being honest about it, now I took away all of this stuff and this meanness and this desire to push back. And, you know, I just am going to say what I meant and what I felt, you know, and it didn't actually hurt my feelings. When people say mean things, it doesn't hurt my feelings, because unless you're a creator doing what I'm doing, 2 + 2 = 4, you don't know.
Consider
what I'm
the source. Right. Exactly. Consider the source.
And people that are higher you than you don't punch down. It's always the people below you trying to punch up. Right.
Yeah.
So, and again, I'm not trying to say I'm better than anybody. I'm not, and I never will be, won't be. But my actions are going to describe my character, and my character is going to be placed in a certain place, and whoever wants to put their character wherever they want to be gets to decide their actions. Simple as that. So, you know, again, I'm not going to place myself in any spot. Other people get to do that. Again, and some people that I met early on in life would place me down here, right? And if you meet me later on in life, maybe you place me in a different spot. And that's the beauty, is if I place other people on this scale, I'm also not doing myself a service or them a proper service, and that people get to learn and become more mature. So part of me not getting upset every single day is understanding that the people around me are also in this process. And I mean this, like, I really mean this part here. This is like something I think about a lot, and that is that, okay, we'll go into road rage. You're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off and you get mad, right? This feeling of fear just overwhelms you immediately, because how dare that person do what they just did and affect your life? Or maybe, you know what I mean? How dare they do that, right? And I started realizing, well, number one, right, I don't know who that person is, and I never will. Let's just say they're a kid and they're speeding and they're doing idiotic things, okay? They might hear a story on the news a day later, watch a YouTube video. They might have some experience where 3 days later, they would never do that again. And they're so sorry they used to act that way. And I would like to talk to that person. That'd be a friend of mine, right?
Yeah.
3 days before, he's an idiot, right? So again, the day's time is a huge recipe piece that can actually make you like or dislike people, okay? So allow time to be an understanding that I might like this person at a different time, but right now I don't, and I can understand that too. Right now I don't like this guy, and I'm going to stay away from him for now, right? But again, this emotional reaction to it, I used to feel very strongly, and over time I realized, well, if I can just see people from a different perspective and try to love them as much as I try to care about myself, right? Then I'm going to actually have less anxiety again and be easier off. And part of that was I keep going. But part of that was traveling, and I got to go to other places in the world. And when I would travel, I would see. I mean, when I went to Russia, I was in a car, and I was in Moscow, and driving the cars. Everybody's honking, and not one person was getting angry. It was chaos, and they were all honking. Everybody was doing stuff, but not one person was getting emotional. Because they were like, that's just the way it is, trying to get around. Everybody's fine. We're all cool with each other.
This is how we communicate here.
And I had a revelation, which was like, you can do that? You can actually like interact with people and kind of like beep, beep, beep and not get like emotional about it. And 2 seconds later be singing music and not care about that person. Whoa, I used to hold that person in my head for 30 minutes, right? After they'd fly past me, right? And so again, this was pretty early on stuff, but these are all slowly things that kind of develop into who you are, right? And as an adult, 36 years old now, right? I can say that, wow, it took a lot of years to kind of get to this point to where it all felt a lot more comfortable, right? But it's these kind of interactions and these little things that happen along the way that allow you to kind of go through it. And part of it's that struggle that I had to go through to become a more easygoing person, right? Better way to say it.
Yeah, sure.
But also just a more understanding person. And what's funny is, growing in high school, one of the papers I wrote for was a social studies class. I used to love writing papers. I thought I was a little bit smarter than I was philosophically. I had a lot to learn. But I remember one of the first papers I wrote, and there was a guy named Mr. Maley. I'm going to call it this teacher. You remember Mr. Maley at all?
Of course. Chris, shout out Chris Maley.
Yeah, great. So we had a report or paper one day, and I remember I was doing mine on understanding, right? On understanding. Actually, I want to say a quick story before that, just since you said that. And I remember in this class, I did one report on a race car driver, and this race car driver, Jeff Gordon, I was obsessed with him a little bit. One of his first things he did, he crashed in one of his first races when he was a kid, and when he got older, he ended up winning all these things. Good for him, right? So I thought, for my attention getter, I'm going to walk up in front of class, and I'm going to smack fall on the ground, which is something I kind of used to always practice anyways. I used to do magic and do weird stuff, physical humor, right? So I was ready. I knew how to trip myself. I knew how to smack the ground with my hand, make it loud, right? And so I'm like walking up to do my report, and I had extra papers even, and I kind of trip myself, and I smack, and all the papers go flying, right? And the first line of my report is, man, that was embarrassing, but not as embarrassing as Jeff Gordon must have felt. And you know what I mean? Right? And so the teacher had this script, right? So the teacher knows that this is part of it, right? And in my mind, for some reason, I thought all the kids would laugh and it's going to be kind of fun and I'm going to get everybody on my side. I did the fall thing. I get up there and everybody in the class thought it was purpose or on accident. Everybody thought it was an accidental fall, right? Everybody's laughing kind of at me, except for some people are feeling like, oh, this is awkward. I don't want to laugh at Caleb, but man, that was funny. Everybody's laughing at him. And then the energy switched real quick from I thought I was going to be in control to read this report to I got real nervous real fast when I realized the only person in the room that realized it was on purpose was the teacher.
Yeah, right.
And then I'm like, it was on purpose. And they're like, yeah, okay.
Sure,
yeah,
whatever.
Okay,
good
sure,
save,
like,
buddy. Yeah.
That ruined me a bit. That ruined me a little bit. So next paper, I did a paper on understanding. And I just remember being a little bit obsessed with this idea that we would really, truly all get a little bit better along if we would just take some time to understand each other. We don't have to agree. It's not about agreeing with others. It's just simply about understanding why they're doing things, right? And if you can at least understand their position, you go, okay, it's not so bad, right? And I had a pretty basic understanding myself of that concept, but I at least was far enough to think that's a good idea. I still think it's a good idea, but I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that on how I should explain it and go through it, right? But anyways, again, under no disillusionment that I think I know it all, I don't. But I know enough to know that through understanding, through perspectives, right, that we can come to some insight. Again, we don't have to agree with why other people are doing things. But if you have at least that insight, it helps.
Right.
Certainly helps with it, right? Again, I will never agree with certain things people do.
But I can understand why they might be doing it. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, we all get thoughts of things and there's a reason, right? But we don't have to always do what those thoughts are. So again, we get to pick and choose who we want to be, I guess is what I'm trying to say in the end of it all. Even if you're in a culture or in a position or in a place, we still get to pick who we want to be as individuals. And I've always wanted to genuinely just be somebody who is not the best, not perfect. I want to be right. I want to be knowledgeable. I want to be helpful. I want to be valuable. And how do you do that without coming off, right, like a know-it-all or an asshole or, you know what I mean, or as a narcissist, right? Well, it's a lot of talking, a lot of communication, and it's a lot of nuanced speaking, right? I feel, and I'm trying to figure that out. That's my path that I'm trying to walk right now, because how can I bring other people along with me? Again, if I'm number one, not doing what I feel is correct, and number two, if I'm going to create something that's not good at the end product. You know what I mean? We have enough of that out there. We know there's enough of this out there, right?
It kind of goes back to what you're saying about like deceptive marketing. That's just, it's not something you do. It's not something that you're willing to entertain. There are other people that do it, and that is what it is, but it's not what you're going to do. It's not the technique you're going to employ.
Right, and I know I've been talking so much, but and as you say that though, I want to kind of almost be clear on why, right? And because there's this idea that okay, well, we all want to be Prince Charming, we all want to be Mr. Perfect, right? We do. Come on, we all want to, or at least we want to be seen that way, right? Well, it's not about being, you know what I mean, the perfect person. What it is about genuinely asking yourself, everyone out there who's listening to this, right? Ask yourself, what is truly the best outcome for what I want, right? What's truly the best outcome for what I want? And if I'm hurting anybody ever, is it really going to give me the best outcome in what I'm doing? If I ever steal from somebody, I do not steal and lie right now. I really try. I mean, again, tomorrow I'm going to steal. Tomorrow I'm going to lie. Right? I try really hard to keep these things out of my life, because the more you can, right? The more you can get rid of that, the more freeing life is, truly, right? And so, you know, having said that, you know, there was even a thought where Amazon sent me the wrong thing, and then I got the right thing sent to me, and I thought to myself, oh, I could save like $20 if I just do this little thing. And even then, I'm thinking to myself, the question is, for $20, Caleb, is it worth poisoning everything you are for $20? You know what I mean? No, dude, stop it. Stop entertaining the thought. Go away from it. You know what I mean? Like, because it's those little things that get us. We say yes to it once, and then it becomes the next thing.
Death by a thousand cuts kind of deal.
Right. Yeah. Come on. Again, so I'm not trying to say I'm a perfect person. My point is that I'm even tempted by the small stuff. And the small stuff, if you can't say no to the small stuff, you certainly aren't going to say no to the big stuff. Right. But again, and I guess my point here wasn't that. My point was the true good outcome. When I say the true big thing that you'll get is not from doing those things. Right. I'm going to forever sit in this place where I'm going to have less if I live in that mentality. Right. And the moment I start getting more, I'm surrounded by products right now. I'm surrounded by thousands of dollars worth of things right now. I'm not concentrated on them. My everyday thought process is, how can I give back to people and how can I give value? True. I'm not great at it, but that is my mindset. And the moment I started doing that, I started getting flooded with stuff to do and flooded with opportunities, right? And so again, part of that recipe that I want to give to other people is, hey, you want stuff? Okay, perfect. What are you doing for other people? How are you helping others around you, whether it's somebody close to you or a brand? I mean, the easiest thing in the world is to grab a Coca-Cola and make a video going, I love Coca-Cola. I mean, I'm not saying you should do that. My point is, anybody could do that. Anybody in the world can do it because it's available everywhere. And you know what? If you do that 5, 10, 15 times, I bet you Coca-Cola's going to notice.
At some point.
I mean, I'm actually very serious. I mean, if you even do something like 15, 20 times, Coca-Cola's social media team, they're going to notice.
They'll like it.
You're already on their radar.
For sure.
Right?
100%.
Any brand in the world, you do this for 5, 10 posts, you're on their radar. They know you, right? So like, my point is like, it's not impossible to reach out and get things going for yourself. You just have to say, well, what do I want to do and who do I need to meet to then maybe find out what that recipe is. And people like myself, people like yourself, and many people out there are available to reach out to, and we'll give feedback. You know, I do get people sending me emails and asking for things. I've got Discord chats back in the day where people would ask for things. And several of these friends, I mean this, several of these friends who used to be like, hey, Caleb, nice to meet you. How are you doing some of these things? I would try to tell them everything I could. And I can point to several people out there that are doing way cooler things than I could have ever thought myself to do. And again, not because of me, but just because I didn't block them, right? Yeah. And I let them do their own thing. And now they are people that I can use to push myself forward as well, right? So by not having that mentality of scarcity, of trying to block people off, right, of allowing people just to flourish whenever you can, actually then provides more opportunities for you in life. So what I'm trying to say is, my mindset is just this abundance of when I just try to do my best, give value to others, help others. I'm not trying to be this amazing guy as much as I'm genuinely trying to give myself the best life and opportunities, guys. Okay? And I want everybody to see that I'm not trying to look good for you. I'm trying to have a great life for me. And not just for me, but how do I do that? It's that we all have to be involved. Right? It doesn't mean I'm a millionaire sitting on my ranch by myself. It means that we're all hanging out together, having a little party with all something to do, with all money and food in the bank. You know what I mean? Or, money in the bank, food to eat. There we go. And that's, how do we do that? Well, there's people that are willing to work and there's people that are not willing to work. And unfortunately, we do have to somewhat identify that and have a heart for that. But and this is where we get into the whole conversation of some people slide down slides all their life and some people like to climb ladders. And life's supposed to be a combination of sliding down slides and climbing ladders. So you get to your destination but not be on bottom. Right? Makes sense?
100%.
Because we're all going to get there eventually. But where are you going to be at? The bottom or are you going to be on the top? You know what I mean? And
there's also a component. There's a undercurrent to what you're saying here, that this is something that I have been trying to work on a lot. My wife has really kind of opened my eyes to it. She's a wizard with social media. Most of her jobs she's got have just been from connections she's known on social media. And there was one thing she told me that I'm still like trying to figure out. She's like, social media is supposed to be social. Like your Coca-Cola point. Like this happens with her all the time. She'll post one thing that she likes and then 20 brands will send her something. But it's because she has made friends with people, like legitimately made friends with the people that she's connected to on social media. They're into what she's doing. She's into what they're doing. They support each other. There's a social element to it. And the one thing that I think a lot of people don't realize, especially about social media, is that gap that used to exist between the people who you aspire to be and who you think you are right now, that doesn't exist anymore. Like a lot of people, even A-list celebrities, many of them use their own social media. And if you're liking their posts and commenting on their posts, you might just open a channel of communication to someone who you thought you were, or in a more prosaic sense, somebody who lives halfway across the world that you're never going to bump into at the coffee shop. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's this social component to social media that I think a lot of people undervalue or just completely glaze over. And it sounds like you employ that even with your story about your other buddy, Caleb. You guys met online. You had never met in person, but then you're like, no, we've engaged enough online to see that our interests are aligned enough. Let's do the social. Let's do the social part of social media,
Well, so exactly. Social media, you got the word there. It needs to be social. It's part community. And if you don't have the community, well, what are you doing? And I'll be honest right now, I do not have the largest community on social media by any means. And I've never really tailored myself to that. I kind of more did the YouTube and had somewhat of a YouTube area, and I would just post stuff in other areas. And if you don't communicate much, in that actual way, you don't really get the same kind of feedback. Regardless, I've always had a really good, I would say, click rate on things that I put out there, right? When I do virtual reality type subjects, I get a good response from the people that actually are in that world. But to your point, social media is supposed to be and can be used as a tool to better your life and benefit you and help create a portfolio, and I would say an online presentation of part in your reputation in a sense. Well, people don't know about you. Well, they need to find out about you. And if you want to be hidden, well, that's a choice. If you want to be social, that's a choice too. But there's many ways to identify and categorize social media. I'm going to give it a quick binary categorization, and that is there's people out there that are more personal and social, and there's people out there that are more entertainment based, right? And myself, I've always tried to play both because I don't want to be told what to do, number one, and I kind of just like to do, number one, what's comfortable. And I had this conversation with myself, which one are you going to do? And then I had a problem with trying to pick one or the other, because if I did one, then and I decided, you know what? There's no rules. There are no rules, guys. There's no rules. So YouTube used to be YouTube. It used to be videos for you, make with your friends, and that's how it started, right? And now it became this other big media conglomerate of things. But what I'm going to say now is that social media for me, including YouTube, every single post is a lottery ticket in my mind. What do you mean? Yeah, lottery ticket. If I go to the store and I buy a lottery ticket, it's going to cost me some dollars, and I'm going to put myself into a pool with potentially millions of other people, right? Okay, I could maybe win millions of dollars, maybe even $1 billion, right? Take away taxes, go back to million, right? Anyways, I can win a lot of money in this lottery, but how many people are playing that lottery, right? A lot. And so kind of in my mindset now is if I'm making a social media post, I'm playing a lottery because whatever I'm posting about, I'm now getting viewed by those people, and those people are either going to be friends or opportunities, right? If I'm just looking for hearts and random comments, honestly, check yourself. Don't be disillusioned. There's no purpose of random people liking and commenting on your stuff. Random people becoming your friend, those are friends. That's nice to have friends. Those people you can visit, people you can travel to, people you can talk to, people you can learn
something from. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, friends are great. I meet a lot of friends through social media. Absolutely, right? And got to talk to, as you said, famous people, this and that. Believe it or not, right? We got to get Tony Hawk in one of our video games because he communicated with our brand through Instagram, and we got to jump in and get a contract signed all through Instagram within a 48-hour period. Got to do it in a video game. You know what I mean? Again, all through social media. Fun story there, right? But again, when used as a tool, it can be pushed in so many good ways. But when I use it as a lottery ticket, basically somebody can see it, they can reach out to me. If I put contact information or if I let people know I'm involved in 3D printing, I now have people say, hey, would you like to look at our 3D printer? Because we saw that you opened that last 3D printer, you did a pretty good job. Would you like to open up our 3D printer, right? Again, so now I'm getting opportunities for more stuff and more people to meet. I was on several 3D printing podcasts back in the day, which was really cool. And that was a lot of fun just to talk about podcasts with people, talk about 3D printing with people, because they knew I was involved in that world and I had made all these things. Again, I went from being somebody who wished I could touch a 3D printer to being an expert in the field, telling all these other people about it.
Right,
and again, I'm under no illusion of how that happened and who I really am in the picture, right? Again, I'm trying to help people and I am trying to learn as much as I can every day. But when you do product videos and you learn as much as you can about different products every single day, you find that you start to develop a pretty good sense of how things work, which works in other ways for you. But anyways, I'll end this rant about lottery tickets, and that is that I've had a lot of opportunities come to me because of the videos I put out there, because of the posts I put out there, telling people what I'm into, what I want, what I'm involved in, right? I got to go to China and compete in 2019 as America's first virtual reality #1 qualifier, which was pretty cool. I'll pat myself on the back there. And that was because I had enough times where I was trying to put myself out there visually as I like sports, I like VR, I like the two of them together, right? I like competitive stuff, but I also like the fact that my physical body and the benefits of me working out in the real world correlate and then go to that virtual world. So then both of those things together, because I'm a nerd and I like to be physical, I like sports and I like to play games, right? Come on, mix those two things together, VR esports, baby. And then, I get to go to China, but that opportunity came because someone saw me. And then again, I'm going to keep going. I got to be in a documentary while I was there because somebody saw my videos. I'm under no illusion that Caleb's special. Anybody out there that's doing those kinds of things has that opportunity, right? And if you don't want to do those things, well, don't do what I'm doing. That's fine. You don't have to do that. If you want to do those things, do that stuff. When I was a kid in high school, I wanted to look cool, not because I wanted to make other people feel sad, but because I wanted to make other people feel happy. And if people thought I was cool, then I could make other people feel happy, right? Just like a celebrity makes people feel cool, right? And I wanted to be able to do that for people. There's narcissism in there, trust me, I know it. But that's what I wanted. But when I learned Photoshop the first time, I realized I don't need anyone else to look cool. I can Photoshop myself to whatever I want, and that's pretty fun. Yeah, that's really... And so then, why do you get into video? Well, I want to be able to make myself look how I want to make myself look and have fun with it. And I'll tell you, at this day and age, I have such almost like a jokingly mindset about it. I use AI and I use all kinds of things together, but I'm doing it in such like a very non-serious way, but it's fun for me. And there's no scripting, and there's no, like, you know what I mean? There's just, let's just hit record and go. And like do whatever kind of falls into place. That's kind of how I create stuff, and however it kind of falls into place naturally is what the end product is. And that for me is just as much fun for a viewer to watch the end product as it is for me, because I'm always like, ooh, what's going to happen at the end? I have no idea, right? So I kind of do a lot of those things, but okay. Let's rewind a little bit. We've done this a few times now. I'm going to rewind back. You talk about meeting people and how these things get to cool places with technology. And because I was talking about virtual reality there, it got me reminding me about that too. And I would say that VR does this really unique thing in a couple different ways. In one way, it allows you to not be stuck in your home, right? To be stuck in one place, it allows you to transport yourself and meet other people. And when I first got involved in VR back in 2013, 2014, I started developing. When I would get into these early places, I would meet people in California and other places in the world that were kind of the first people involved in this technology as well. And all of these people kind of got involved in the bigger programs, the bigger companies. And so by meeting these people early on, I got myself in a lot of little networks, which was really helpful. And I told myself, I want to be a VR professional in 10 years, right? And within 2 years, I got to be on TechCrunch and a bunch of other, I would probably say about 10 or 12 different tech magazines, online publications, because of stuff that I was doing with virtual reality. And I was in a podcast called VR Spies at the time, and we were doing some cool stuff. And again, my brain started realizing very quickly, again, I was always thinking to myself, Caleb, it's not like you're this special guy. It's that you started working, you told yourself, you gave yourself a goal, and you started pushing towards that goal, and look at how fast these things are happening. Like, wow, things work. And again, that's a nice feeling of anybody out there who wants something, who maybe isn't taking the steps, start taking some of those steps. It's coming for you, right? Don't pay attention to what you don't want. Pay attention to what you do want. Pay attention to what you do want. Pay attention to what you do want, right? And keep going that way. And again, all of a sudden, people started reaching out to me. We had a Skype chat that was the VR Spies Skype chat, and we made it public. So anybody who'd watch our podcast could go in the description, could click on our Skype, and then join and kind of talk with us. This was before Discord, so this was kind of the first place. Discord, we eventually moved over to Discord once that one started. I got to meet those guys in San Francisco, a great group of people who started that whole company. Cool things, a small world. And right when we started our Skype channel, though, we had some people come in and out that were known to us in the industry, which was really cool to see some industry people, which made us feel like we're being viewed. And then one day, here's my little fun story for you. Then one day, a guy jumped in, and he popped in. He's like, hey, guys, I need help with Skyrim. Do you ever play Skyrim?
I didn't, but I had a million friends who played Skyrim.
All right. Elder Scrolls Skyrim, and it was a real big game, but you could mod it to play it in virtual reality. So you could like swing your sword and fight the dragons.
I've watched a ton of gameplay of that.
So they eventually came out with their own, like an actual version. They came out with Skyrim VR, but before, I'm talking about before Skyrim VR, guys. And I'm not going to get into too many details because I don't want to say too much, but I can at least tell the basic story. And that is, this guy popped into chat and he's like, hey, I need help with my computer, and I want to play this. Basically, I'm a huge VR nerd, right? And so we're talking to him. A week or two goes by, and we're chit-chatting with this guy, and he's, and other people. And all of a sudden, we're like, hey, what do you do? Because we're trying to get to know our friends, our fans, right? The people. And he's like, oh, I'm in a little band. I'm like, okay, Ben's in a little band. Okay, Ben, what little band are you in? A little band called Breaking Benjamin. Wait, what? Are you Ben Burnley, right? Yeah, it's me. I'm like, what, dude? Oh, hey, yeah. We're of course we're all kind of like fanboy. We all have hilarious. Met people in our life, but it was just one of those things where we didn't realize the guy we had been chatting with, was him, and we're like, oh, that's pretty cool. So we all tried to play it cool, and I can tell you right now, very nice guy. He sent free graphics cards and things and computer parts to my friends and did all. Sick. He was a very cool. Yeah, he was a cool community member. Like actually participated and was one of those people. I was very fortunate. I got to play some VR games with him and do some of that stuff. But again, my point here isn't to say, oh, how cool. My point is that when you start to do those things, right, the people start to come together, right? And you start to find those situations, and again, they start to fall into play. And part of my confidence and part of my feeling cool comes from, of course, the things I've done, the people I've met, and the lessons I've learned from them as well, right? And being able to ask questions and whatnot. But again, as I kind of mentioned before, the whole lottery ticket and the ability to meet people, well, that would have never come if I didn't play with technology and if I didn't learn technology and I wasn't using it, right? Somebody who loves camping, loves the outdoors, and loves nature, right? If this guy wasn't involved in technology, I wouldn't have the life I'm having right now. And so I really think that, as we said a few times, this word balance, pops up into play. This word, it's very important to have a balance of things in your life, and those balances shouldn't be the same for everybody, right? Like the way that I balance my life doesn't need to be the way you balance your life, and for anybody out there. But the word balance does need to exist in everyone's life.
It needs to factor in there somewhere. Yeah.
right. Because you doing too much of something is going to be you're going to have a different level of the too much and the too little, right? As opposed to my levels. But that's where I think everybody, if you ignore it, right, then bad things happen, right? So again, I jumped all over the place right there talking about social media and VR, but we'll have to jump back on another aspect of VR later. Have you used virtual reality yourself?
I have. I've used it a bunch. Right. Yeah. I don't know if you remember James Fouché. He went to Southeast.
Absolutely remember James Fouché. Yeah. I actually got to work on a few projects with him, which was really cool after high school. Some short film things he did with the Johnny Carson Film Center.
Oh, killer! Okay.
Yeah, I know he worked with Treyarch. Is that right? For a while.
He still works with Treyarch.
Nice.
And there were a few times where I went out to LA where he and a couple people were like really deep into VR, and I remember they would be like having meetings, and I would be in the garage like
that's awesome.
Crashing planets into each other and shit. I love VR. For me, my max is about an hour before I start to get vertigo or seasick. But I love it. And another guy that I work with is super into VR, and I did the boxing. I loved the virtual boxing. That was super cool. It's a workout. It's a serious workout.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely. Yeah, no, seriously, it really is all you need. And I guess that's the thing. Do you know Cullen Wright? He's another Nebraska person who was out in LA, maybe not.
Offhand, I don't recall the name, but yeah, I'm happy to give him a shout out in the name.
Yeah, you may have crossed his path at some point, but he was also super into it. He even has one of the tracking pads, like the foot things.
Yeah,
you stand on it and you can walk in VR.
Yeah, we've got 2 of those over there.
Yeah, so he's like super deep, and every time I would go over to his place, it'd be the same thing. It'd be like almost a rite of passage. Like if you're going to go over to Cullen's house, you're going to have to play some Star Wars VR or something. But I love it. I think it's super cool, and for me, it's the one thing I dislike about playing video games with a controller is the wrist and fingers getting sore, and the fact that I'm not move, and I'm constantly like trying to keep a good posture, but you can only keep a good posture so long when you're like sinking into a couch. And with VR, it's like you have to use your body. So there's already like another level of immersion that even the best looking video game playing on a controller, you're never going to get that. You're never going to get the level of immersion when you have to move your hands and arms and like walk in the physical space that you're in.
Right. Yeah. And as you just said that, I'll even make one more comparison. Is just as playing with a controller is never going to give you the feeling of just moving your real body, right? It's also virtual reality is not going to give you the same experience as doing things in real life, right?
Sure.
And we know that, like running on a field or doing this and that, but I'm going to overemphasize this part. It is still completely necessary, if not more important than the I would say the flat part, right? We could almost just avoid that part completely, the controller part. That's the comfort, sitting down, looking at a screen. That's just super comfortable, which I do from time to time, play flat game, call it pancake gaming, as the VR people say, right? So yeah, we'll pancake game from time to time, do the whole 2D stuff. Sure, guys. But no, for the most part, when you put on the VR headset, it's, again, this distinction, it's a different thing, right? Let's just be clear. It's a different thing that you're doing, right? We're now changing realms here, and it's different from the physical world as well, depending on what you're doing. I have myself run around on the beach playing virtual reality while in a beach in virtual reality, and it was amazing.
Meta!
Right? I was fighting guys with a sword while I was out there, hanging out at the pier in California, and it was the most fun I probably have ever had in virtual reality to date, right?
That's awesome.
I still remember the feelings of joy and how my brain knew I was there but wasn't there at the same time, and it was crazy, right? But what I want to say is that the experience, though, of you mentioned you get sick after an hour. Well, it will get you sick depending on what you're doing. If you haven't played it a lot, 100%. And again, the what you're doing part, just like anything. If I'm watching entertainment versus a podcast, right? If I'm playing this experience versus that experience, there's a lot of experiences that do different things. And when I, for example, a very important thing for me that happened early on when I was in virtual reality is I got into Google Earth. And when I went to Google Earth, I did this thing, right?
Yeah.
And this is something I've talked about this a few times, but I think this is really important to bring up because people talk about the power of now, the secret, right? The law of attraction we hear about so often, right? Well, if you believe in the law of attraction, if you believe in the power of now, the secret, right? Get yourself a VR headset because the whole idea of manifesting something through a board, no I wills, I'm going to, I'm doing it, it's happening, right? But the board itself exists in a visual space, right? Whereas virtually, when I do something in VR, my brain is like, you did it. My brain is like,
you were there.
And you're good at it, and you can do that thing. And again, if you can do something once, you can dupe it much easier. Okay, it's much easier to get multiple things the moment you've got it once. All right, so focus on getting the one time, and then the multiplying is we can talk about the duplicating effect. It's super. That's much easier to put into a practice again, because when people have seen that you can do something, people trust you more with that thing.
Sure.
Right. Whatever that thing is, but getting this process to start. So, okay, now I do this thing where I jump all over the place. Now, what was I talking about?
VR.
Before duplicating?
If you can
exactly.
do it in VR, it's just like
I know where I'm at right now. So first thing I went to Google Earth, and again I did a lot of experiences, but Google Earth was a place where, well, wait a second, I'm just in real life again in the VR headset. Nothing too amazing, right? Now we're kind of disillusioning the whole VR side of it, but I'm able to travel quickly in a place perceptually, right? And what I did is I went back to Lincoln, Nebraska, and I went to the place I lived, and I went to the school, and I went and saw things. And so I started live streaming this. And actually what's cool, to this day, I have this live stream still available on my channel. I got almost 100,000 views, which is, good for them. But this live stream is really important to me because this actually, to me, had a big impact on what I did the next few years of my life. And I first went back to Lincoln in the video, and then I decided, hey, where do I kind of want to go next? And I decided, well, I always grew up like in California, and I had an uncle that grew up and lived in LA. So I went over to Hollywood and went up next to the Hollywood sign and actually kind of flew over it and went and landed down next to it for a little bit. And I was like, where do I go next? Well, I'm going to go over to Rio. And I went to Rio, flew to Brazil, went to Rio, went to the Jesus Christ, right, in Rio, went and stood next to that thing, was like, wow, look at it, it's so big, it's pretty cool. I was like, where do I go next? Let's go to Tokyo, right? So I went to Tokyo, went over to Tokyo, hung out in Tokyo for a little bit, stopped in China on the way back to home, right? Went back to Florida, right? And get back there, I'm sorry, I went back to Missouri at the time. So I get back to Missouri, I think I stopped in Florida. I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly. I either went to Florida before I went to all those things, or I went to Florida on the way back. Having said that, when I got done with the live stream over the next 3 years, right? 3.5 years, I lived in Brazil for 3.5 years, on and off, right?
Amazing.
Went to Rio, got to go visit Christos, right? Lived in LA because we had an LA, so I opened up the office in Santa Monica, got to hang out there for a long time, had a place right on the beach at the pier, right? All of a sudden was there, hanging out, got to do a whole lot of meetings with people, and then traveled to Japan, got to go hang out in Tokyo for a little bit, filmed a documentary there, got to go to China to compete in the VR stuff, right? Again, I'm not trying to say anything other than, wow, there was this big connection where I literally did these things, saw them, felt them, had this experience that was very important to me and very impactful to me, and I can say that honestly. And then after it, those things became easier. Yeah. I can't say that there wasn't a lot of work to make all those things happen.
Sure.
There was a lot of work to make all those things happen, but it was amazing looking at it in hindsight going, whoa, wait a second.
Felt a little more tangible having done it.
That happened and this happened,
yeah.
Right? And then, and I want to hear your comments on kind of what you think about this whole idea of law of attraction, but just to kind of double down on this idea of VR helping out. One thing I also did is I used to watch all the TED Talks. I was obsessed with TED Talks, right? Got super into them, watching them all the time, and watch them on Netflix. And I thought, man, it'd be cool to be in a TED Talk. Why? Well, because people would think you're smart, right? I want people to think I'm smart, right? But what would you talk about? Well, I want to have an impact. I want to help people. But what would you talk about? I don't know. And I remember I kept thinking, like, I want to do one, but I don't know exactly what I would talk about, right? And that was a thing that plagued me. And then virtual reality, there was a program, Mind Show, and in Mind Show, you could be a character, and they had a little TED Talk stage with a red circle. I went out there and I did a little pretend TED Talk on my little character and made a little video of it, put it on my channel, right? Spent the time editing that. A year and a half later, I got an email. I did not apply. I got an email. Caleb, would you like to be in our TEDx presentation? Would you like to fill up a speaker role? I said, yeah, it'd be pretty cool. Again, that whole law of attraction thing kind of hit me on the head, and I was like, wait a second. Most people have to apply for these things, and I just got an email for it. Pretty cool. Lottery tickets, my videos, right? And those things that people were able to see, it's because people were able to,
I just pulled it up. But.
Yeah, if you hit mute and then play, it usually the skip button pops up right away, right? Sometimes, but yeah, regardless, you don't have to. The point is, yeah, like being able to do that was something that I had wanted to do. I had practiced, doing it in a virtual environment, and then by the time I was actually able to do it, I kind of felt it wasn't like, well, what do you do now? Well, now I knew what to do. I had all this experience of things. I had these stories I wanted to tell. I wanted to bring people along and show them kind of how I got there, and I got to tell true stories, which at the very beginning of the talk, I started to tell people, hey, I'm here because of the movie Toy Story. And when I first watched Toy Story, I saw the characters playing around in a virtual environment, and I thought, whoa. If you're telling me if I was in the computer that I could hang out with those guys, right? Like as a kid, I remember thinking that, like, whoa. So what do I need? What do I need to do that? Well, what I need is a thing I can put on my head that allows me to be in the computer that works really well. That didn't exist at the time that I was thinking these things. So I was waiting. From that day forward, I was waiting for this technology. Yeah. And so the talk kind of starts with, okay, it wasn't like, oh, look at this cool tech. I was finally, it's here. All right, does it work? How do I work? I got to make it work. There's no games for it. I'm going to make a game for it. I'm going to try to get some stuff to work. Oh, I met all the people. Right? Again, talking fast, but that's how kind of the process of that got going for me. And again, there's all kinds of things that we're working on. As we're working on this, we're also doing this. I was working in production for 10 years myself. I got to work on the Broadway with Wicked. I got to do a whole bunch of things that were on that side. I've always had a job, and I've always done this content stuff kind of on the side. And it's always allowed me to kind of shift and move different things. But again, as I said, production, marketing, entertainment, social media, all those things kind of mix together to create and coalesce into something that is helpful. And I do want to, I'll go ahead and say, just because we're on the podcast for the whole, I guess at least the line to make it something that's important that I should say that I got through while I was doing virtual reality was, we got to win a Primetime Emmy, which was really important for Brazil, because before I had worked with this team, Brazil had never had a Primetime Emmy. And it's not because of me, it's because of the amazing people on that team. I was very lucky to be a part of it, but I think I was the only American, so it got to say, hey, USA is a part of that whole thing in the sense of, regardless, I got to work on some of these really cool projects over the last couple of years. And the reason I bring that up again is just because I feel like it was not by chance. It was, I wanted these things. I thought about these things. I didn't know how to get them, but I wanted them and I thought about them and I was trying to find ways to make them happen. And it wasn't just this random occurrence, right? And so what I feel is that anybody and everybody out there who starts to try to do the things that they want, it's not a maybe will it happen. It's going to happen. Get that maybe out of your mind. And now let me help you with the steps, or let's talk about it so we can figure out the steps, right? Because that's what people are here to help us with. Others, like you and myself. And again, communication, that process allows us to do that. So anyways, I know I talk way too much sometimes on certain projects or certain things, man.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And this is, an undercurrent of what I'm trying to do here is kind of the same thing. I like to have a lot of my friends who have a background in interesting lives and avenues of creation, and just kind of inspire people to do that more. Like no time before this has it been easier to kind of manifest an idea than it is now, and I guess this might be the best spot to wrap it up here. And I want to get like your final thought. I
got a question. I do got a question before we wrap it up, though, if we can, because I want to push it a little bit with you before we finally. But I can let you finish talking. Sorry.
Well, basically, the question I'm going to ask you is going to be words of inspiration, but we can bullet point. We can come back to that.
But we'll come back to it, because I want to prolong it just a little bit with you here, because we talked about.
Let's hear it.
And I'm all for positive talk, which I did a lot of, and I mean everything I said, and I genuinely just want to provide sound bites and hopefully something, not necessarily new knowledge, but maybe just watering the seed that's already been there for people, acknowledging the thoughts that are already in your mind, right? Be the person you want to be, follow your gut, keep doing that, but focus on what you want, not what you don't want. Get that out of your mind, right? Because I really want successful people and happy people, because then we get to live in a happier, more world that has more opportunistic world, right? In a good way. And we get to do more things with each other. Okay. But what I want to ask you about is, a little bit of that. You said you started with conspiracies and stuff. What specific conspiracies do you think about right now, day to day? Because my life is full of, this is what's important.
Yeah.
Kids and life.
Yeah.
And then it's also, did you guys realize there's a bunch of aliens hanging out around us that have been here for like thousands of years, and there's UFOs that are going on? And here in Gulfport, people are sending me videos of orbs in the sky that are freaking out and doing all kinds of crazy things. Okay. And then there's interdimensional things, Jinn and Genie. Trust me, that's the other side of things, and I feel like both of them are almost equal in my mind, right?
Well,
and so we've kind of sat in one.
I would agree with you. I think that I have never had a problem entertaining multiple streams of thought. So for me, there are things that I'm constantly churning over, and the conspiratorial portion may change based on what I'm reading or consuming at the time to further my understanding of this or that. Sure. But it's never, maybe for a short period in my life, did it inhibit my ability to enjoy my experience. But at some point,
I get what you mean there. Yeah, for sure.
At some point,
which happens to a lot of people.
In fact, I would say most people that get consumed by conspiracy stuff, it really does. It consumes their life. And at some point, I just said I didn't want to be that kind of person. I want to be the kind of person who can go anywhere There was literally a moment in my mind where I was like, okay, I'm not going to talk about this shit anymore. If someone asks me about it, then I'll talk about it.
Now it's fair game.
Then it's on. But I'm not going to talk about it anymore. And, it's ironically part of what started the podcast. So many people got sick.
This is the part that I wanted to get to. I apologize. I had to get through the first part because that's like the intentional important part. But to me, this is the part that I actually care about more.
That is it. I think the thing that I'm trying to impress here is that pontificating on conspiracies is a luxury. That's a luxury.
For sure.
That's something you get to spend time doing when everything else in your life that is immediate and not a conspiracy and actually occurring right in front of you, after those things are handled, whatever extra bandwidth you have, then you can commit it to that. Even with the podcast, like so many people, I got kicked out of so many parties for crushing the vibe that people were just like, start a podcast, like make a space for you to speak on these things. And ironically, many of the people who kicked me out of those parties would then want to come on the podcast to talk about some crazy shit they heard.
Right place, right?
It's exactly. I created a space for this topic of conversation to be acceptable. And now even people that really didn't want to entertain it at the party wanted to come on the show and talk about it. So with regard to like, what are the things that I'm stuck on now? And I don't like, I will entertain any conspiracy. I love stories. So I'll entertain anything. Doesn't mean I believe it. In fact, most of the conspiracies I come across, I don't believe them because there's not enough there.
We'll put just a disclaimer right here. We're allowed to talk about, pontificate, just basically speak about things. We're going to put our mind at ease and not be so serious here, because this is a point where we get to just talk about thoughts, and thoughts are allowed to be wrong and to grow from them.
Yeah, right. No, 100%.
The thing is, if we don't put them out there, if we don't express things, then it is somewhat of an elephant in the room. Not everybody thinks about this stuff. Not everybody goes into these little tunnels of thought processes. So I don't get to talk about this stuff with most people, right? And I think also part of the discussion I want to have in this podcast forum, because I think it's important that others get to hear it as well, because you and I could just go all day chit-chatting privately as well.
Well,
about
and
these issues.
I guarantee you, let's 100% commit when I come on your show. Like,
we'll go there.
I've been taking notes about stuff to make sure that we hit when I come on yours. But
well, one thing I'll say, the very first guest I throw on my podcast, I thought to myself, I didn't have somebody to mind, so I brought AI on, and I just talked to AI about spaceships and UFOs and about near-death experiences, all these things that I wanted to ask, hey, what's in your AI data bank, right? And then I gave her a little avatar and I made her kind of come alive when I did the guest. But anyways, my point to you there is just that's stuff that I'm definitely interested in. So although I will talk about all the other things, that has to be a part of it. Because again, if it's not a part of it, am I really doing a service to not just the people I'm talking to, but the real me isn't just that stuff we talk, all that. Yeah. It's both of those things, and it is thinking about these deeper things, because even though you said that we get to talk about these things when all the other things are taken care of, I completely agree. But I also want to say that when a tragedy happens, what kinds of things do we really think about? This stuff? Nah. When the tragedies happen, we start thinking about this stuff over here.
Yeah.
We start thinking about life beyond death. We start thinking about what else is out there, right? Who else is out there? And we start thinking about these bigger things, because this stuff means nothing anymore, right? So if you don't ever have this developed at all, when this happens, whoa.
For sure.
Where do you go? And that's part of what keeps me from going depression land, is actually having this big base of research and thoughts and ideas and processes.
It's funny that you say that too, because I've always looked at conspiracies and like thinking about conspiracies, and partly in just some of my lived experience, but I have gone to places mentally thinking about conspiracies that are darker than anything I've ever had to deal with in real life. And I've had to deal with some very dark things in real life. Mm-hmm. And if I hadn't prepared myself, it's like a resistance training, right? Yeah. Like I've already run so many more
simulations,
possibly dark simulations in my mind, that when I come across even a dark, tangible thing in front of me, it's like, this is bad, but we'll deal with it. At least it's not this other thing that I thought about that is way worse in comparison. So for me, it's always been like it's always been a thing that's made me appreciate life. And there's like a, this has been a concept that has been thought about for ages, but memento mori, like, don't be afraid of your death. Contemplate death. Know death, because death and knowing death will help you appreciate life. And death doesn't mean, it can mean the actual literal something dying, but it can also be the figurative sense of death, the end of something.
Which we experience all the time.
It's just a part of life. And I think even as the ancients thought about this, it to them it was more important, because death was much more obvious and definitely not siloed in the way that it is in modern society. But it's the only thing, when we're born, it's the only thing that we know we're going to interact with. Everything else is a possibility, but we know if you're an organic being, you're going to die. There will be death. And the more you think about it, the more it really makes you appreciate life. And that's the correlation there I'm saying is, when I look at conspiracies and I entertain scenarios of how terrible the world could be if one of those things were true, it definitely has always made me appreciate life. And it definitely helped me not take things as seriously. Like, when dumb things happen, I laugh. When dumb things happen, I laugh. It's funny to me, because I've already entertained scenarios that are so much darker. And I my friends who will get bent out of shape about little stuff, like, I always have to break that down for them. It's like, dude, I understand that this might seem like a big problem to you, but this is nothing more than a minor inconvenience. So I
not only is it a minor inconvenience, but I wouldn't say the easiest way to get people out, but one of the ways I try to get people out of this mindset is to, you make people show up, number one, and that is, you say, what are your expectations of life? Right? Because for me as a person, as you just said, you simulate all these things, right? You simulate all this stuff.
Yeah,
well,
100%.
Exactly. I'm an over simulator in the sense that, and it can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing, especially if you don't simulate properly. Right? If all your simulations are completely out of whack with reality, well, now you're just overworking a brain that doesn't do anything. But when I start doing the 2 + 2 = 4, and I start giving myself true simulations, is this bad? Is this good? Often the things that I thought were bad weren't bad. And often the things that I thought were good maybe weren't as good, right? So I just ask myself, is this really good for me? Is this really bad for me? Number one. And as you said, when you simulate things, well, what is your expectation? I used to fly a lot. I went from never flying to flying
all the time,
every other week.
Yeah.
And you know what? I was genuinely tired of it, and I became that guy that was like, I am done with this lifestyle. Like, I thought I was kind of bougie. But the thing I remember was that I lost my expectations of a flight that's on time, of not having crying babies, of nothing going wrong.
Yeah.
Why would I have an expectation of nothing going wrong? I started thinking, you know what? I could be late today. The cab can be late. The flight can be delayed. There's going to be 16 crying babies on there. When I walk up to that baggage terminal, nobody's going to wait. They're all going to be stuffed up to that bag. That big pisses me off. They always get right up next to it. It's not your bag. Take a step back, guys. Take a step back. All these things it used to get worse and worse. And I was feeling it build in me to the point to where I would get to that baggage terminal and I was ready to punch somebody, right? That's how I felt inside, right? And I knew inside, hey, number one, I don't want to be this person. I want to enjoy my life, and I want to be sitting here feeling happy today. So how do I do that genuinely? Well, I have to care about the people around me, and I have to be real. Number one, a lot of these people have never traveled before. They're excited to get their bags. They don't know what they're doing, right? A lot of these people are just, maybe they're ignorant. They're in herd mentality. Okay, they're humans. Love them. Care about them. Stop being this asshole, right? Check yourself, number one. But again, if you expected the flight to be on time and there to be no crying babies, well, guess what? When that crying baby started happening, now you're bent out of shape. Right? Whereas the moment that baby started crying, I go, there's number one.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
All right.
Here we are.
Where's number
Check.
two at?
Check.
All right, is the air going to work? Yeah. Air doesn't work. Number two.
Here we go.
All right. I'm going to get hot. I might throw up this flight. It's going to be a real problem.
Good thing they left me a puke bag. Oh, never mind. No, they didn't.
Exactly. It's a problem for them now. Again, I'm playing the game of life as opposed to expecting the world to be something that it never has been for anyone ever.
100%.
The world has never been perfect for anyone ever. Why are you expecting for things to work out for you? I bought this car and it's supposed to work perfect for me. I'm sorry. It was made by people in a factory. It might have something wrong with it. You might have to go through some stuff. That's reality. Guys, I'm just saying, so when the moment I stopped expecting life to be something that it isn't for anyone, life started becoming better for me. So how do I teach people? Well, I say, open your fucking eyes. I'm sorry, open your eyes.
Yeah, right.
See the reality. Again, I like the name reality check because it's just always like, hey, open up. Again, I have this smile on all the time, and partly it's kind of almost an FU smile to people of like, you grow up, and partly it's, I actually am genuinely happy. It's not fake.
Yeah.
I don't want to be mad today. You're not going to make me mad. You're yelling at me? Bye. Like,
neat.
See you. Like, again, I know the reality, and the reality is if you want to have a better life, we should be helping each other. Not because I'm smarter, but because I just know that when people help each other, that word synergy pops up, right? So, all right. And when people hurt each other, just by the word definition, hurt, right? We know that all of a sudden we're going to have less decline, right? And so it's not easy to make everybody agree, especially if you've got different beliefs or different cultures that believe in different things. Well, hey, look at the world today, right? But that's why, again, I know we got totally lost on the subject, but that's why the conspiracies I think are so important, truly, because the reality kind of pops into play here. You know, I'm under the illusion, and I'm going to say the word illusion, I'm under the illusion right now that our world could be very different in the next 10 years, right? Especially if this idea of the UAPs and NHI and other beings, right, that aren't human, you know, pops up. Or whether it's the government trying to trick us into this thing, which a lot of people believe in that whole thing. Again, I'm not telling people what to believe. My point is this stuff's popping up right now. Definitely. Not maybe. Definitely.
Yeah, it's those are hot topics right now, for sure.
And, you know, and I can ask, like, do you think we went to the moon, right? Yeah. Again, right? It's people don't want to say because they don't want to be labeled this or that. But then why do we have these people flying around the moon right now doing radiation checks if we've been there 7 times before and it went perfectly when we were driving cars around it?
Fun note. The place where they made the lunar module was the Grumman Bethpage Planets over here in Bethpage, Long Island.
Hey, nice.
It's now a movie studio.
Dude.
Gotta love
Weird,
that.
huh?
That's
Weird.
Hilarious.
Kubrick knows. He knows it all, man.
Yeah,
Again, I'm not going to tell people what's right and what's wrong.
Man.
I'm just somebody who I've seen things like the fact that a bunch of the telemetry data was deleted, right? The fact that they didn't let people film the first missions the proper way. It was recorded through a wall. Again, these things are all red flags, as they should be for anybody paying attention to just basic stuff.
Sure.
It doesn't mean one thing is one way, but it does mean, hey, there's basic things how the world has always worked. And then you look at some of these things that seem a little off. Well, if they're off, keep checking, keep poking. And generally, if you get told not to check or not to poke, there's a reason for it, right? And again, I have no data on these things other than I do live right next to GE, and of course there's Lockheed Place right next to me. I'm right next to an airport, and I do have people in Gulfport sending me UFO videos of orbs in the sky.
Sure. Florida's
that are definitely
very hot right now. Yeah.
Well, again, and I'm not the only one, so I have no problem saying this because I do have the videos. I'm going to show them to you. I will absolutely show them to you so you can see what I'm talking about. You will see helicopters, you'll see airplanes, you'll see drones in the video, and then you'll see orange orbs coming in and out of sequence and getting bigger and larger. So it's like, it's not like you can say it's this or that because you can see all of them in the same video and you can point to what each one is, right? And so again, my point to why am I talking about this now? I want people to be aware that there is a bunch of stuff going on. I'm not trying to say I know what it is, but if you say that we didn't go to the moon, which is what a lot of people always say, hey, we didn't, but then we had this super crazy technology since the 50s, there's a juxtaposition there. Right? We're able to fly around UFO crafts, but we can't use rocket propulsion to get somewhere that we said we were going to get to. And last thing I kind of want to say out there, just to sound stupid and smart at the same time, is how much fuel does it take to actually get to the moon and back? Right? Do you think we could have done that on a rocket?
There's a great video of a NASA scientist who like breaks it down. He's like, you know, I really started calculating the amount of fuels that would be required to do what we're supposedly capable of doing, and it's
right that we've never done even once yet. It's supposedly,
and the radiation thing. There's a bunch of weird stuff there. I think here was a moment.
It's fun to talk about these things.
This was a moment that brought me a lot of peace, and it was a moment of clarity, a rare moment of clarity that I came to in my 20s. The government lies. The government lies. They don't like saying what they did, because if we knew about what they did, and there's a million instances of this, like beyond the ethereal definition of a conspiracy, like actual criminal conspiracies that are not, it's not a thing that I'm making up. There's a ton of evidence to prove that this horrible thing happened. The government doesn't want to talk. No government likes to admit when they've messed up or done something bad.
And they kind of can't sometimes, right? Sometimes they can't.
And like literally, in some cases, nuclear war is at stake. Mm-hmm. But like, they just lie. They lie. We don't hear the full story. Why would all the details about the actual processes of, the filming, how they filmed the shots that we see from the lunar module, why don't those add up? Because they lie. The government, as governments have always done, and before government it was religion, because religion was the government before government. They just lie. They lie and they control the perception because they want the people to stay in line and not get crazy. That's a human nature thing. Okay?
Right. Well, but as you said, and this is the thing that we get fed a lot, is that the lie is there and it exists, but this is where it kind of usually stops, though. So what do we do next, and what do we do about it? Well, here's the thing that I want to say about that. Yeah, they lie, but there's a reason there's so much stuff being unveiled. And just like many documents say, whether you go in the spiritual text or not, whether they're influenced by things or not, in the end, things come to light, right? Just like a sunshine coming up. And what I can say is there's more revelations coming every year, partly because people are dying that used to be hiding a lot of this stuff, right? Yep. And also AI. Let's jump into that. One thing I used to talk about with AI, Vale, when I first talked to her, is hey, you have stuff. If they're feeding you full of data, you're going to have stuff that you're going to eventually be able to say. And if somebody somewhere puts a bunch of data in you that somebody else might not want, but it's there, and that thing gets made public, copied and pasted, well, now that information, it's going to be encrypted in an AI form. You're not going to be able to find it like you typically would with a normal search and destroy system that we've always employed, right? So unless you have time travel, which some people say we have, unless you have time travel, this is getting out of the bag, right? The cat's coming out. You're not going to be able to put the toothpaste back in. And it's slowly coming out. And we are seeing that happen with a bunch of things that are going on right now. We have some documentaries that are popping out, The Age of Disclosure, and then, of course, the S4 documentary with Bob Lazar is coming out here in a few months, which I have my signed poster on the way.
Sick.
Thanks, Project Gravator. Yeah, pretty excited about that. So I have no problem telling people I'm a nerd about this stuff. I want to be very clear that I do think about this stuff, that I like hearing about this stuff. I don't think that I know it all about anything, although I do feel like I have a lot of good ideas, because when you pay attention enough, certain things align, certain things don't, right? But even then, if somebody wanted to lie to me, they sure could about it. So what's the best thing I can do? Pay attention, keep an open mind, ask you what you think.
Well, and dude, I've got a bunch of notes, because there's a ton of stuff I want to get into with when I come on your show, because
we'll do it.
This topic goes crazy.
We'll bring the audience to both places. So hey, yeah, we're going to continue the conversation. I do want to do your ending here.
Like, as that, yeah. I wanted to make this show really about you and your thoughts, and not. I do so much conspiracy content. Like, I'm really trying to. Hey,
but that's what your audience, and just from my perspective, if that's true, then your audience values your opinion and what you say, and even if they've rehashed your thought over and over, it's good to just say it. And so I just wanted to, moving forward, push into what you care about, because we use the word conspiracy now, as we well know. The moment it becomes fact, well, you're going to have every TikTok person saying, guess what? I knew this, and this is the way it is. Well, yeah. I'm sorry. There's a lot of people who've been caring about this stuff for a long time, and I don't need to be looked at as like, oh, Caleb knew about it before. But I would like people to at least see me as somebody that wasn't ignorant to those things as it was happening the entire time, right? We've been growing up since the movie 2012 came out, right? Early on, we were like, no, we know about this stuff early on. 2000, right? We had the Y2K scare come up.
Sure.
We've been through these things. We're ready for this stuff, guys. Like, we're not immune to it.
Whether we like it or not, it's coming out.
Exactly. So yeah, I do appreciate you letting me talk a whole bunch.
The one question I will ask, and I will ask that if you haven't seen this movie, that you watch it before I come on your show. Have you seen Mirage Men?
Mirage Men, it does not come to mind as a movie I've seen.
Oh, buddy, nope. You're gonna have to watch that. So
I love hearing things I haven't heard, though, too. I'm happier I haven't heard it.
Documentary came out in like 2008. In my opinion,
documentary.
It's required watching for anyone who's into these topics. And this is like a whole tangential rabbit hole. I've done a bunch of content with one of the guys who was on the Greer disclosure a couple years ago. His name's Eric Hecker. He's the Antarctica disclosure guy. Done a bunch of episodes
I know a little
with
bit
him.
about that. Yeah.
But he and I are basically
When you say when you say Antarctica disclosure, do you mean about like there being the wall, or do you mean it about being, because there's that whole thought process, that
not,
and then there's
not
the
the
idea
wall.
of people saying
this is
the underground weather manipulator. There's that as well.
The neutrino detector, yeah. But he worked in
That's how we tell where
Antarctica.
the spacecrafts are, guys.
Yeah,
Right,
well, that is right. Like that's where that thread kind of gets into. But he was out there. He worked out at South Pole Station for a year and saw a whole bunch of crazy shit. And now he since he came forward, like his story has kind of been, no one has really been talking about it, but it dovetails on the idea that, and Mirage, this is why it's important for, if you haven't seen Mirage Men, to watch Mirage Men. Mirage Men will explain to you why the government would want to come up or propel people from the government to make people think that NHI, UAP are one thing when they're not.
Oh yeah,
and
and
they very well may not be, and it's a thing that 2 years ago people didn't want to hear it. Like so many people hated the fact whenever we brought it up, and it's. I'm not saying that there isn't anything beyond the planet. I personally believe we are not the only life in the infinite expanse of the universe. But what I will say is that
what is the universe? Is it a simulation, or is it a real? Okay.
In any scenario, I don't think life just exists on this orb, and beyond that, like there is some crazy technology that the military defense companies have had for a very long time that to us would look like an advanced race of beings but it is from this planet. It is from people like actual scientists who are working on classified stuff going back to World War II, and it's some stuff that if any person saw it without having the tangible understanding that it was human, they'd be like, there's no way a human came up with that.
Which I hear this and I follow this and believe in this. I do actually have some belief in this area, right? For sure. It gets difficult though when you have to combine that with the knowledge of like the pyramids and the 2,000-year-old or 10,000-year-old cave drawings of insectoid people, right? And like, okay, so sure, this is government, but then there was this history and the talking and all the stories of the gods coming to the people, from the years previous, right? So there's the before stuff and there's the later stuff. And again, to go into what I see now from some of the people who I believe in, they say there's generally a mix of things. There is exactly as you said.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
Looks like exactly the future. And then there's these old things and now we're kind of at this little in between battle between the two, and maybe some of the things lived here before, maybe some of the things used it as a base, maybe this maybe. But the truth is, okay, hey, what can we talk about? We actually have some more tangible relevancy to, and what I can say is, since I've been here in Florida, I never saw a UFO in Nebraska, never saw a UFO in Missouri. I got here in Florida. I've seen at least personally, I've seen 2 unexplainable things. I have videos of many unexplainable things from Florida from people who I personally know, but again, twice I was here, and I didn't. I do want to say this because we can go into talking about it more on the next cast. But specifically, what I saw didn't seem like it was alien. It seemed like it was our stuff, cloaking, hidden, doing things that a normal craft couldn't or wouldn't do, right? And the best thing to describe, well, why didn't you record it? I tried. It's very difficult to record a black object in the sky at night. Okay,
yeah,
guys? Right. Especially with a cell phone when you're walking your dog. Yeah. It's not easy. And I laughed. I can tell you, I remember the moment I was trying to do this. I remember specifically looking at this thing, trying to record with my cell phone at night. And I remember just laughing my ass off because I thought, well, that's another reason you can't get these things on camera, because half the time you see something crazy, it's in a place or in a way that's very difficult to see it, kind of. You know what I mean? But you still do see it. And you're blinking and you're thinking to yourself. And you're also making sure that you're not faking things, because you don't want to be that guy that just makes stuff up. You want to be able to have a real memory of something. So you're sitting there blinking 3, 4, 5 times. Is that a thing? It's a thing. Again, I'm not trying to say I saw a UFO or an alien. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I saw stuff I didn't realize what it was. And usually when you look at an airplane or helicopter or anything, you hear it and you can see lights.
Yeah.
No lights, no sound. No lights, no sound on what I saw. So, all right. Actually, we'll go into it later. The first thing I ever saw, the second thing would have been the second thing. Yeah, the second thing I saw was with another person. The first time I was in a car with another person. The second time I was walking my dog with another person while he was walking his dog. I still know the gentleman on Facebook. We still talk about this situation. It started out, and since we're talking about it, we started off looking like a Chinese fire lantern, right? In the distance. I thought I saw 2 Chinese fire lanterns in the far distance because it looked like almost like slow illuminated bags from really far away, right? And like I could make them out. And I even stopped the other guy, and this is how I know. I said, "Hey man, look over there. Look at those things." And he stopped, and we looked over, and we're like, "Are those we're talking about? Are those bag thingies?" And then all of a sudden, lights go out, and we see 2 hovering, black, dark. I want to say triangular, but my brain hits me and says, you don't quite know what the shape was.
Yeah.
But the best way I can say is it felt like it was triangular, right? And that's what a lot of people then go to the TR3B or whatever, the old.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to mix my thoughts into that stuff. I'm just trying to be very honest with what it was. It was 2 things, and they were moving. But it would have been like, well, why would they do that in the middle of the day, right? Or not middle of the day, middle of the night when it's not, it's 9:30 p.m., 10 o'clock. Wasn't 5 a.m., So anyways, stuff that I see, I can't explain it, but we go back and look at the reports, and hey, there was no airplanes at that time in that spot. Okay, well, what was it? I went and I notified the UAP online board, and I put my thing on it. I tried to do the work that I could do, put my notice out there. Anyways, it's a fun subject to talk about, and I really do think that genuinely I'm happy to kind of wrap these ideas together because I don't want to run away from the fact that these things are important. And I do think that the pursuit of these higher level thinking things is very important to even out the other things.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah.
Business all day. Well, what comes next, guys?
Yeah, right. Well, the balance that you're talking about, that's been a core portion of what we've been speaking about here, is like you have to balance that out. If your entire existence becomes the business of things, where's the magic? Where's the stuff to wonder about in life if everything is this business formula and it's important.
Right. Yeah, and I will say that even if we just look at, I love this idea of the hard problem, and this is kind of a concept that's somewhat new to me, and the hard problem exists anytime you hear about something too much and you don't know why. Well, there's a really hard problem to try to dismiss that thing, whatever that thing is. If you're hearing about it, there's a reason for it. Or if it's coming up over and over in your life, there's a reason for it. It's really hard to dismiss why, or it's not that it shouldn't, or that it's no use to you. And so the hard problem that I'm talking about right now is, well, here we are discussing things on a podcast, chit-chatting to each other. And I mean this, having an old friend to talk to means a lot to me. Just this moment and this experience to me right now means a lot to me, right? Just because I get to have that. But why are we doing it? Why? Because we have these different feelings and these reasons, but there's something bigger pushing us as these humans, these creators, to make things and to push out information to others to try to not just add value, but to express and to communicate. And when you talk about playing guitar to calm down, whether you're dancing, whether you're talking, whether you're singing, whether you're playing an instrument, those are all ways of communication. And when you communicate, you let your feeling out there, right? And I feel like everybody needs to do all those things. You need to play guitar. You need to play an instrument. You need to sing. You need to dance. You need to talk. Not just one of those, all of those things, all of us, right? And this is part of that process. And again, I think it's not only healing for us to get to do, but
for sure.
Hopefully it's beneficial for the listeners as well, right? So,
again, I'll go back to my question about what are words of inspiration. So we've got somebody here that's maybe opened themselves to the idea of pursuing the thing that they've been putting off or saying they're going to get to. What are the words of inspiration that you can give them to let them know that it's going to be okay to step into that gray unknown?
Being alive is a very special thing. And if you are alive and you can understand that, you can start to motivate yourself to get to do the things that you want to do. And if you're having trouble finding motivation, right? Or sometimes people say, you don't even feel like you want to be alive in some situations, right? Again, it's being able to look at what you're looking at and see if that's the right thing. And if I put on dark glasses that are smudged up with dirt on them, and I get them really, really dirty, and I put them on, everything I look at is going to be super dirty. And what I'm telling you is the world, not maybe, the world wants you to succeed. That's my thing. The world wants you to succeed. And if you feel like it doesn't, you need to take off the dirty glasses. You need to take off that wrong vision and you need to see it from a different perspective. And if you're having trouble doing that, you need to talk to people and you need to read some books, right? But overall, the world wants you to succeed, and there's a lot of people out there that are willing to help you. So the more you communicate, the more you ask and open your mouth, the more opportunities you'll receive. That's my words of wisdom. Action does create more action, right? And sitting in fear will only allow you to sit in fear. So, and I do like that one acronym, or not acronym, but the saying, which is that, fear is, right, a mile wide, but an inch deep, right? So yeah, it's take a step and you'll realize, wait a second, you know what? Hard is actually fun. It is. Easy is not fun. We play easy mode, we get bored really fast, right? We play hard mode, and whoo, it's exciting. When you play hard mode with friends, fun mode unlocked, right? So I want to encourage that. Again, I don't have all the most friends in my personal life. I actually really don't. I don't have anybody around me personally. I have my girlfriend, which I love and dearly care about, my kids, which are awesome, digital friends for the most part. So I don't have that group of people all the time. But if I need somebody to outreach, you better bet I'm going to sit there and make it vocal and make it known that I want to talk or that I need something, you know what I mean? Instead of being quiet about it like I naturally used to be, right? So I can talk, I can keep on going and going and going, my friend, but I do want to just push that out there. Action is going to get you good actions back and forth. And of course, if you're not seeing things in a proper way, the ingredients are time and change your outlook. Move around, take a travel.
Love it, dude.
There we go.
Caleb, thank you for coming on the show. I'm going to have links to all of Caleb's socials, including the TED Talk in the description, so please check those out. He makes a ton of great content. I personally loved the chip video. I think it was for a fan, some of the fans you were demoing.
Oh, yeah, my Duster fan. They said, could you take a picture for us? I said, I got you. Something for you.
Yeah, let me take care of you. But this has been the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast, folks. Thank you for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe and check out the links in the description. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you, James.
This has been the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. The end. With your host, James Oliva. Executive producers, Clint G and James Oliva. That's obnoxious. Sound design, mix, and master by James Oliva. Literally no one cares. For more Totally Legitimate Business, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Totally Legitimate Business or add us on TikTok at TLB Pod. When will this end? Thank you for listening. Now get back to work. Move it along, buddy.